Good afternoon. It is April 23rd, 2024. Welcome to Scouching Live. Of course, I'm your host, Will Scouch. What is going on, everybody? I again am joined by my illustrious producer AJ. How are you, my friend?
Leafs in five.
If you haven't noticed yet, AJ is a Leaf fan and a big time Leaf fan. So
And we like to do a little trolling on this show.
maybe a little healthy dose of trolling, but I mean, yeah, we'll get to it. But today we're going to be doing the a bit of a recap of all the playoff series. They all have now gotten underway. A couple of series have played 2 games, so we're going to go through all of the series, and just kind of go through it. I mean, AJ, initial thoughts before we do the ads. I mean,
This rocks.
holy crap! Yeah, the best coming as advertised. It's the best.
I'm so excited, and
Yeah.
every game I've seen so far has been pretty awesome, minus game 1 of Leafs Bruins for obvious reasons, but we won't get into that.
Not awesome. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
still, man, it's been so great. I've loved this playoff so far, and we're gonna talk all about it. But first,
Yeah,
Will,
first, yes, of course.
part.
Our show is brought to you by Fanatics. You can use our affiliate link code in the description, or you can scan the QR code in the chat window or in the video window to provide a kickback to the show on anything you buy in the store. You can also support my co-host, who is away in San McGilligan, and I at Puck Preps Hockey. We've got some USA Hockey Nationals recaps coming out. There's TELUS Cup coverage if you're interested in that coming up shortly. So be sure to check out the website. Maybe pick up a subscription if you're interested in that stuff. We're also brought to you by Fractal Hockey Consulting, which is my hand-tracked targeted player analysis and recruitment packages for the NCAA Europe and beyond. Got solutions for any of your organization's needs. And of course, if you are interested in playing in front of European general managers and potentially earning a gig over there, and you are a Division III, Division I head coach, player, U Sports coach, it could be right in your wheelhouse for a pretty neat opportunity to continue your hockey career. And of course, we're brought to you by Scouching.ca, where you can get exclusive access to data tools with tons of insights into draft prospects and players making their way into the NHL. Subscribers did just get an exclusive post about some of the recaps of players I've tracked in the last couple of weeks. So those are going to be subscriber only. And I also have now started putting out a newsletter on that website for subscribers. So if you're interested in sort of keeping up with where I'm at, where things are going, and some storylines that are popping around in the NHL draft and the NHL itself, be sure to check out Scouching.ca and subscribe if you like. But if not, there's going to be plenty of free content coming up.
And also early access to Scouching reports.
That too. The reports are coming out. We now have 3 out for subscribers. 1 is public. There's going to be more coming.
Yeah, the second
We're
one's
filming
coming
more and
out
more
after the show is done. So
correct. Yeah.
Get ready,
so stay
guys.
tuned for those. Yeah. We're gonna come fast, and it's gonna happen often. But it's gonna happen. Anyway, let's move on. That did not come out how I wanted it to come out. We're going to start. What we're going to do is we're going to go chronological and sort of work our way backwards. So the games last night are going to sort of take precedence, but we're going to start with Boston-Toronto.
The most important series.
Sure. They've played 2 games. Yeah. Obviously, the series is tied 1-1. Game 1 going to Boston 5-1, and Game 2 going to Toronto 3-2. AJ, there was a lot of screaming and gnashing of teeth and wailing and moaning about Game 1. Where are you on that? Considering it was a bit of a doo-doo one.
Honestly, I felt like the Leafs have been the better team all series. Truthfully, like at 5-on-5 for sure. In Game 1, mainly a lack of discipline is what killed them, and Jeremy Swayman just being a god. But I felt like, for the most part, the Leafs probably deserved to win Game 1 had they not had such a rough start. But like Game 2 is insane. That was the best playoff performance I have ever seen out of Austin Matthews. He was a dog last night. It was truly special to watch. He gets the winning goal. He gets on every single he gets a point on every single goal. He was 69% in the face-off dot. He was just, I think he had 8 shots on goal, +2, 23 minutes of ice time, and it was a masterclass by Matthews. He just looked so good and so dialed in all game, and man, this is why I'm not concerned about him at all in the playoffs. Last year, it was the nagging wrist injury that I think derailed him in the second round, but he was great in the first round. I always worry a little bit about Marner because, playoff hockey, you don't have as much time to make decisions, and he
Yeah.
still takes a lot of time to do it anyways. So I was really
Yeah.
impressed, but I'll let you go for a little bit, and then I'll throw some more points out there.
I mean, I agree. I think if you look at it, especially at 5-on-5, I do think Toronto has been the better team. They are, I think, you know, the skill advantage, I think, is really showing itself. And yeah, I mean, a lack of discipline in game one is a huge factor. Like, you cannot take penalties, like especially silly ones, right?
And their penalty kill is
And
horrible.
yeah, that's what I mean. Like, their penalty kill has not been good, and Boston has some players that can certainly score on the power play in playoff style ways, and they did. Um, I mean, I agree. I think on Matthews, like, he was excellent last night, and I thought even in game one he was getting his chances. I thought
Yep.
Jeremy Swayman was fantastic in game one. I think that, like, again, like, I think people, when they really complain about how their team performs in the playoffs, it's like, well, you got to think about the things that didn't happen that almost happened. And there was a few spots in the first period there where Toronto could have, in the first few minutes, popped a quick one on Boston, and it just unfortunately didn't happen. And in fact, it came back the other way. And in typical Toronto Maple Leafs fashion, the opposite happened that should probably have happened. But they, I mean, but they came back pretty strong. I thought they played really well last night in general against Boston, especially like as the game went on. I thought they started a little slower, and then as the game went on, it got there. And the other thing too, I mean, I'm not going to throw out that like a team is getting tired. I don't think that's really a good analysis, but it did seem like Boston came out really intense and hard and excited the first game and the first period and a half of game two. But then in the third period, and as the second period sort of came to a close, it felt like they kind of settled in a little bit too much and weren't really sort of moving the puck as effectively. And their rush offense was really strong in the first little bit, and it kind of slowed down, and Toronto was just forechecking them a little bit tighter and a little bit better, and it was enough to sort of clog the game up a little bit and sort of give Toronto an advantage. So I thought, both games are really, really entertaining. I was on the edge of my seat for last night for extended periods right up until the final buzzer. And again, like, this is the magic of the playoffs. Like, game one, it was 5-1. Yeah, Toronto made some mistakes, of course, but like, I could see many universes where that game is a lot closer if just a few different things happen. And last night, yeah, I mean, a few bounces here and there, I could see how, Boston might have come away with that one. But Toronto, I thought, shut the game down really well and sort of gained control.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens, because I'm fascinated. I think it's I don't think the series is anywhere close to over, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. As much as my my Leafs remarks off the top of the show happen, they're always in jest, just so the people understand. I still think the Leafs win in 6, but like last night, I was really impressed with, especially after not a great first period. Ilya Samsonov really bounced back and shut the door after like for 2 periods, and was just solid. 27 out of 29. He looked great. I felt that Max Domi was fantastic. I love that top line. I think, like, as much as I've given a lot of heck, I guess, to Sheldon Keefe. Like, I've nagged at his decisions. I've liked them so far, and the adjustments that the Leafs have made, they've been great. I think the way that the lineup is constructed currently, even without William Nylander, like all 4 lines have looked pretty good for the most part. I love that Domi, Bertuzzi, and Matthews are together. That's easily been the best line. Really like.
Yeah.
Even, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Ryan Reeves and David Kampf have looked great. It's dumb to say, but they've looked great.
Well, when you think about it, it kind of isn't. Like, all of those guys, I mean, Ryan Reeves is, like, when you look at the deeper numbers for them, like, they do not do a whole lot offensively, but defensively, they also do not allow, like, they haven't allowed anything.
But they've been in the offensive zone a lot of the time. Like, that's been what's been so surprising, is those 3 guys have, they scored the only
because they
goal
pinned them
last game too.
They've just been pinning them there. It's crazy to watch. Connor Dewar's been good. David Kampf really has sort of been that good defensive center on the fourth line that he always could be.
He
And
disappeared all season, but I don't care if it's back for the playoffs. It's the same thing with Morgan Riley, right? Like defensively, he's a
right,
nightmare in the regular season a lot of the times, but especially in game 1, he looked awesome. Game 2, he looked good, but I don't
yeah,
think it was necessarily a standout. But I'm just happy with how they bounced back after a couple of really rough incidents, especially like going down 2-1 with 8 seconds left in the first, getting goals called
oh
back against you.
yeah,
Right? They just didn't let it get to them. And
yeah.
I really feel like they might have one of the best forward groups in the playoffs currently. Like I really think that they're that strong, especially when you add William Nylander back to this team and
Right.
probably in for Pontus Holmberg on that third line. I really do still believe that the Leafs should win this series because Boston's just not nearly as talented. It's going to come down to, can Jeremy Swayman or Linus Hallmark stop more pucks than the Leafs score? Or sorry,
Yeah, I mean,
stop enough pucks to win.
I agree. I think but the other thing too though is this is the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like if I know anything about the Toronto Maple Leafs, they never make anything come easy, right? Like going down 2-1 with less than 10 seconds left in the period, like uh, you can't be going around doing that, and that's a thing they've been letting happen pretty much all season here and there. And so it's like, yeah, I agree. They definitely, I think if Mitch Marner sort of figures it out, takes a step and just sort of mentally resets a little bit, then they could be really scary. But yeah, I mean, on paper though, yeah, like Toronto, whoops, I almost slipped out of my chair. But on paper, Toronto definitely should, be able to keep taking steps forward. And I mean, I thought Boston hasn't played poorly, but down the stretch of that game last night, if that's kind of what the general pace of their game is going to be over long periods of time against Toronto, who has the effective forecheck that it does have, then maybe it might be a little bit, not the easiest way to get through it unless you really rely on your goaltending. But
yeah.
So while before we move on, has anything about this series surprised you based on what we thought going in? Because for me,
zero.
not really.
Absolutely
Yeah, not
zero.
really.
I fully expected it to be either like 1-1 in the series or maybe 2-0 for the Leafs potentially. Yeah. But that was more of a hope than a real expectation. I kind of expected it to be 1-1.
Yeah.
And that's where we are. And I think the series, I wouldn't be surprised if the Leafs win both at home and then it goes back to Boston and Boston takes that one. But I really do think the Leafs are going to close this out in 6. I just think they're too talented.
We'll see. We'll see.
But I'm not ruling out the fact that Boston could win it. It's very possible. But I think
it's absolutely possible. Yeah, it's possible entirely. Speaking of, I mean, more insanity in the playoffs, the Carolina Hurricanes and the New York Islanders have also played 2 games. Game 1, Carolina beats the Islanders 3-1. And game 2, Carolina stuns the Islanders there 5-3 with 4 goals in the third period. At one point down 3-0 in that game.
Yep.
Just unreal. I mean, and even game 1, right? Like the game was tied going into the third period, and then within 5 minutes, the Canes have the lead, and then they just locked them out and closed it out. And that's what the Canes can do, right? Like that's kind of how it works. I mean, general thoughts on this series? Because I mean, I thought game 1 was kind of up and down, but obviously yesterday was an absolute rocket ship, and I don't even know exactly why the Islanders, why all of that it all just collapsed for them so quickly.
Well, I think what happened in that game, because I was obviously more focused on my team's game, and I flipped it on after, but I saw the 3-1 lead evaporate right in front of me, like because that was during the time, and the Islanders were just on the back foot the entire game, especially from what I've seen going back, and they just got kind of shelled. They had like a 3-0 lead, just sat back, and Carolina just pummeled them until they couldn't take it anymore, and they just got knocked out. Is kind of what happened.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like in the playoffs, like in the modern era of the playoffs, you cannot do that. Like sitting back and trying to play sort of that trap style. I mean, it just doesn't really work. Like
I don't even know if it was just because they wanted to sit back. It's just Carolina forced them to sit back because they came on with so much pressure.
yeah, Carolina. I mean, yeah, like Jordan Martin, like a factor on so many of those goals. Just with the forechecking that he has. The Islanders just, I don't know. It was a crazy third period that, it got a little chippy as well. The Islanders didn't seem to like that happened to them. So we'll
I'd
see
be
what
mad too,
happens
man. I don't
coming
blame them.
back. Yeah, going back home. Going back home to the island. We'll see how it goes. But Carolina has a bit of a hold on the series, and I mean, I think game 3 is obviously game 3 is going to be pivotal, but in more than just like the difference between 2-1 and 3-0. But like you go back home after just getting crapped on,
Yeah.
and it's like, do you get motivated and go, well, no, we're at home now and we have the crowd behind us and we're going to be the ones to send them home unhappy? Or are they gonna just be like, is Carolina gonna go in there and be like, look what we did to them? Like, look at what we just did to them. We can do that in their barn and it's gonna be awesome. And it just, based on the vibes of the Carolina Hurricanes in general, I feel like that's gonna be their attitude. Like, they're kind of like swashbuckling pirates a little bit. They'll go in there and be like, we embarrassed them, let's do it again, right? Like,
Yeah.
on their own ice. And that's gonna be tough to stop because Carolina controlled possession a lot in that game last night, obviously.
Shots on goal.
Yeah, shots on goal were
39 to 12.
Yeah.
39.
And I don't think the Islanders are going to be able to get away with scoring on 25% of their shots on goal for the whole series. It's just not going to happen. The face-off difference was 60-40 for Carolina, right? Like,
it was
on paper, and we said this going into the playoffs, like on paper, these teams are mismatched. And I don't know. I think the Islanders are going to take at least one away.
I do too. I think they got
or
the
at
next
home,
game.
I mean. Yeah, I think they've got at least one of the next 2 games. But man, I don't know. Carolina looks like they kind of started out a little slow, but when they started really getting moving, holy smokes, that team is really, really tough to get a hold of.
The Isles were maybe arguably the better team in game 1, but Carolina was just,
they were good. Yeah,
like, Freddie Anderson put on a great showing.
Yes.
And didn't pan out the same way last night, but still, it's like Carolina, they can win in multiple ways, and that's what makes them so dangerous. They can shut you down. They can score like crazy when they need to. They just have the ability to do a lot of it. So I'm excited to see how far that team can go in the playoffs, because I really do believe in the Carolina Hurricanes as a strong threat to win the Stanley Cup, and it's going to be great. But the one thing I will say, I'm curious. Does Patrick Waugh finally go to Ilya Sorokin now? Is it time?
I thought Varlamov hasn't. I don't think Varlamov's been like that terrible.
I don't think so either. I think he's been good, but
I don't know. I think I don't know. I'm not a head coach, but if it's me, like, that was such a crazy last period of the game that, like, and I also don't know how much I would lay at the feet of my goaltender, that I feel like it would be like, look, let's, we're going to be at home, give him a chance to sort of rebound, because if he's your guy, then he's your guy. But Sorokin is right there, right? Like,
but like the other thing is, it's Varlamov has been extremely hot down the stretch, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what they've been kind of banking on here. Like, that's what got them into the playoffs. But Ilya Sorokin is the better goalie. I think we can both agree. And I think most people will agree that Ilya Sorokin's like a top 5 goalie in the NHL. Probably top 3.
Yeah.
So I would have a hard time not playing Ilya Sorokin. Just giving him a shot here. See if putting him in can maybe shift the series, because, Varlamov's been hot, but the better goalie has been on the bench, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, let me just look, because I looked this up actually, like which goaltenders are actually performing the best with regards to like goals saved above average, and Varlamov is there's only been 3 goalies that have played 2 games, but Varlamov is number 3, not of those 3 in the whole playoffs, but he's the top rated one across 2 games. Vasilevsky and Swayman's way out in front because he was great against Toronto.
Outstanding.
He was great. I feel like if Anderson, it was just game 1, Anderson would be higher, but because he was spectacular, like you kind of said it,
Absolutely.
but spectacular. So yeah, I mean, I think since Varlamov, like, I mean, that goal before not the empty netter, but the last not empty net goal, I think it was Martinook who scored that one. Like, I get that some people were kind of looking at it and being like, oh, he just wasn't covering his post. Like, how do you lose track of the puck there? And blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I think that
It
was
was a
just one of those
breakdown,
weird,
man.
it was just, yeah, like a weird breakdown play of just chaos and weirdness. And that's, that's why you forecheck hard all the time, right? Like,
Hurricanes
because stuff like
hockey.
that can happen. Yeah. And they were directly behind the back of his head. So, like, I don't know, like, you can have peripheral vision as a goaltender, but like, it only goes so far. And so
Yeah.
stuff happens quick and stuff like that can happen, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I felt like Dobson and Romanov didn't do enough on that play because it is behind
well,
them.
yeah,
They were just kind of Dobson kind of meandered there, and
yeah,
then Romanov shows up 2 seconds too late.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know. It's I don't know, but I mean, this one is becoming a little bit lopsided. We'll see how the Islanders respond. Like, that's how this is going to come down, right?
Yeah.
If they come out and, I think that the Islanders, judging by how they play in general and how they ended last game, I think they're going to go out and just come out literally swinging. Like, I think they're going to try to just pound the Hurricanes into submission a little bit. And I get the feeling that Patrick Waugh is kind of really, getting that mindset into them before the next game. Like, that just seems like the kind of person that Patrick Waugh is. But we'll see.
Crush, kill, destroy.
Yeah, crush, kill, destroy, and maybe squeak out a couple of wins, right? Like, that's how they got to do it. And the Islanders have done stuff like that before in the playoffs, right? Like, they kind of managed to find their way through. They get great goaltending and they squeeze through. But Carolina,
they
though,
were more structured back then, I think, and they also had Barry Trotz.
Well, that too.
And
yeah,
I will always point to that. So
right. Well, I mean, do you want to move on to the next one? Because I mean, again, this series again, to me, playing out kind of how I expected, honestly.
Both of the ones we talked about.
Yeah, both of them so far. Generally,
didn't expect a three goal lead to be gone, but I expected a 2-0 going into.
I feel like Carolina's done something like this in the playoffs before, where it's like they're down 1 or 2 with like 6 minutes left in the game, and then they end up winning. Like, I feel like they've done this a few times in the playoffs in the last few years.
I'm just not recalling it at the moment.
Yeah, I'm not recalling it, but I feel like that's happened. So yeah, you can never count out the Carolina Hurricanes to always have a chance. Like, that's just how it is. So the next one we have on the docket, Edmonton, LA. This one last night was a lot of fun, boy. Man, Rogers Arena knows how to party. That place.
And Zach Hyman.
Yeah, Zach Hyman. Dude, crazy game. Connor McDavid looks like a man on a mission. That guy was absolutely out of control last night. Not that that's like a surprise. He had 5 assists last night, which is ridiculous. Evan Bouchard, 4 assists, just scrolling through the box score.
Yeah, like, they had a massive performance from their big boys yesterday.
Yeah.
Zach Hyman with 4 points and a hat trick. As part of that, Leon Draisaitl with 2 points. As you mentioned, McDavid and Bouchard having great nights as well. Adam Henrique.
Yeah, nice goal too from him. That was a pretty nice goal.
Did you know that that's the longest time between goals scored in the playoffs for a single player? 11
How long was it?
years.
I didn't know. Oh my goodness.
The last time it was in the it was either the final, or I think it was conference finals rather, with New Jersey.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's pretty nuts that Connor McDavid's career has happened and Adam Henrique hadn't scored a goal in the playoffs.
Yeah.
During that time.
And again, like, the LA Kings, like, a lot of the time it comes down to goaltending. I thought that they had, like, on paper during that game, I thought that it was, maybe not a winnable game, but probably not a game where you give up 6 or 7 goals. I think one of them was an empty netter. Yeah.
Well, I think the biggest problem when you look at it is they just couldn't handle the Oilers' power play. The Oilers were 3 for 4.
Yeah, which is so silly.
3 for 4. So you can't take penalties against the Oilers. It's a similar story to the Leafs and the Bruins, where the Leafs can't take penalties if they really want to win a game. Taking 4 penalties, and this matters way more for LA because the Oilers just have a disgusting power play.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Disgusting.
Yeah,
You
it
see
was
Leon
ridiculous.
Draisaitl's goal?
Oh yeah,
That's ridiculous.
yeah.
That's
He's such a nice one
and
timer. Like,
and
oh, I
that
love
was the
that.
difference because what was the score line? It was 7-4.
7-4. Yeah, yeah.
3 power play goals.
I do think though, like in general, I thought Edmonton really looked like they were playing really well. Like
Agreed.
I love the LA Kings a lot, but and I know that I've said like, oh, in past years the LA Kings really bring it to the Edmonton Oilers. They really, go after them and make it closer than it should be. But I don't know. I mean, it's only game one, but Edmonton, like you're gonna have to like the LA Kings are gonna have to find a way to walk the line to me of how do we shut down the guy that just popped 5 assists against us without going on the penalty kill all night.
Yeah.
Like how do we find a way? Like who's the guy that matches up to McDavid, right? Like Phil Deneau. Like I didn't really see much of Phil Deneau last night, being a tremendous factor
No, he
really.
took
And
a
obviously
penalty
yeah,
that
and
led to a goal, I think.
yeah, and obviously Connor McDavid, like having 5 assists, like he's having his way with the game. Like that doesn't happen without having significant control of the ice. Even if you have a bunch of power plays. So I don't know. Like obviously it's only game one. The LA Kings barn. It's always rocking when they play there. But man, that arena, I am a believer in like the emotion that the fans give you, like the sort of psychological effect of that.
Yeah, it's true.
Edmonton fans were crazy. They were nuts. It was loud. It was, it was exciting. And I think Edmonton fed off of that. And that's a tough thing to get through. Like especially when you have guys on Edmonton who, I think this is probably the best team that they've assembled for the playoffs in a really, really, really long time.
This is the best team they've had with Connor McDavid, I think.
Yeah, it's the best team they've had with Connor McDavid. And we'll see what happens. I just, Cam Talbot, is he going to be able to hold back the Oilers, right? If they take a penalty, is that going to be enough? Can he sort of rebound and, at 5-on-5, maybe be a little bit more dependable? Because it's not, the LA Kings, they did get 4 goals past Stu Skinner, right?
Yeah,
and I
think
don't know if
problem,
any of them,
man. Like
they were all even strength too.
I'm still
they
not
were all even strength.
Stu Skinner. I think he's a good goalie, but he's got swings. So
yeah.
And last night didn't give me much confidence in him.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
We'll see, but I don't know. Before we move on, again, like sort of a pulse check on sort of where I thought this series would go.
Yeah.
I think I love Edmonton. I think they could win the cup, but I think I might have just kind of underestimated like how different I think this team looks compared to when they've played LA in the past. And I think LA, they're like, you can see that they're a good team, but when Connor McDavid's on the ice, or it's the Edmonton power play, or like those X factor players that Edmonton has, it is a bit of a mismatch. Like that's a tough hill to climb. So for me, like I don't know. I still think Edmonton takes this series, obviously, but I wouldn't be surprised if Edmonton sort of another home game, another strong crowd, another strong output. Cam Talbot, maybe he rebounds, but I don't know. Is Edmonton going to sort of take this one over time? I don't know. But they certainly looked like they wanted to last night for sure.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I'm not surprised because I kind of felt that Edmonton was just a league above the LA Kings in terms of their talent level. Like, because it's Connor McDavid, man. Connor McDavid's so gross. And, he and Leon Draisaitl, I think through their first 50 career playoff games, I think they're 3-4 all time for points. 3-4 all time behind Gretzky and Lemieux. So,
2 things though before we continue. I mean, that is nuts. But 2 things. So technically, on paper, Cam Talbot was not a net negative last night. Stuart Skinner was by a pretty decent margin. Also, on paper, again. The Oilers last night, their lines, their top line of McDavid, Henrique, Hyman had an 84% expected goals for percentage.
That's so gross.
Every other line on the team was negative relative to the team average. So that line single-handedly was dragging that team so far at 5-on-5 up in the positive direction that Like Kane, McLeod, Perry came out about 50-50 at both ends of the ice, and the first line was at 80% plus. So
What was the
we'll see.
Draisaitl line at then?
The Draisaitl line was expected goals was 33. No, sorry, 26.3%.
Whoa.
So very bad at 5-on-5.
Well, they're not very good defensively.
Right, and that's kind of the problem. They had 17 shot attempts against, the most of any line combination, with the third most time on ice. So that line kind of isn't really helping themselves defensively. But I mean, if that one line can keep firing and all those sort of other firepower dudes they have keep firepowering away, I just don't think the LA Kings can keep up with that. But I don't know about Edmonton. We'll see. It's only been game one. We'll see where they're at in game 3, 4, 5 if this trend kind of holds.
Yeah.
But I feel like in the playoffs, having one line carrying your whole thing, even if it has Connor McDavid on it, is tough to maintain. But I was just surprised to see, doing research for this, I was surprised to see just how imbalanced it all was. But I think the special teams last night kind of reframed things way more heavily in the favor of Edmonton.
Yeah, and I felt like a lot of the Kings' good chances came when the game was well out of control.
Yes. Yeah.
So
yeah.
It felt like Edmonton was dominating. They let their foot off the gas a bit. LA made it closer than it probably should have been.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Dallas Vegas is the other one that went on last night.
Yeah.
So Vegas winning 4-3, even though they were outshot 29-15. I will admit this is probably the game that I paid the least amount of attention to, because I can't do everything all at once. But I enjoyed what I saw. I mean, I love seeing Logan Stankoven as a playoff performer, the guy who everybody thinks is going to get destroyed in the playoffs, looking like one of the more interesting players on Dallas last night. That line was great with Wyatt Johnston and Jamie Benn. Wyatt Johnston with that ridiculous pass to Jamie Benn on that really nice goal he scored.
So
really, really nice. So, I mean, I'm not counting Dallas out at all. I think this game, there was some sloppy goaltending here and there at both ends, especially with Vegas. And so if that holds, who knows what happens. But this was a game that I thought could have gone either way, honestly. I know that Vegas got out to a quick lead and everything kind of went quickly in their favor, but I thought Dallas sort of got better as the game went on and and then the game got kind of more end to end. And yeah, I'm not counting Dallas out of this whatsoever, but I thought Vegas played pretty well.
I'm with you. It's sort of a Leafs Bruins first game feeling for me, where I feel like Dallas deserved to win and they'll probably bounce back in the second game because they just looked like the more dominant team. Like Vegas has some awesome players, no doubt, but Dallas, like that third line's disgusting, man. That's so dumb. And Logan Stankoven stripped the puck off Mark Stone to make it 3-2, and
he Mark Stone.
I know, it was beautiful. It was so crazy to see it. Like Mark Stone's like, wow, damn, this kid just really took the puck off me.
Whoops.
And he set up J-Rob, and it was such a nice finish too. Like, I would be really encouraged if I'm a Dallas fan. It's never good to start out a series going down by 1, but they looked great, and I'm really excited. I'm going to keep my eye on that series a lot because it's going to be a fun one. I think it's going to get a little nastier too. It's going to be a hell of a series, and like they've just got, both teams have so much good depth on the team. But what it's going to come down to is, can Jake Ottinger bounce back and be the Jake Ottinger we saw against Calgary? Against that
such a
God
major
Squad
factor.
Calgary team with Matt Tkachuk, Johnny Gaudreau, and Elias Lindholm. Can he be at that level? Because if he can, I think Dallas should win this series. But if he's unable to do that, and they don't get at least average to above average goaltending, then it's going to be hard for this team to progress. And it's a shame because they're really, really good.
Yeah. And like the advantage they had going into this was just the depth. They may not have that Connor McDavid guy, but they have a lot of depth of, guys that are maybe a level below, like a level or two below that. And I mean, I know Jason Robertson scored last night, but at 5-on-5, his line wasn't particularly effective with Pavelski and I believe it was Rupe Hintz.
Yeah, it's Rupe
And
Hintz.
I will never, ever, ever count out those 3 players in the NHL playoffs. Like those 3 guys, I think that over time should probably regress a little bit and get a little bit better. And I mean, I thought that was a really close game. You know, I thought both teams played pretty well. I don't think from what I saw, I don't think either team is like, oh boy, what's happening right now. You know, yeah, there was just some weird goals that went in at both ends, especially Vegas in their net. But I mean, again, it's been very, very entertaining, and I think this one could go a long ways. I think it's been about what I expected. You know, maybe I expected a little bit more pop from Dallas, but this is what Vegas does, though, right? Like they're that physical, intense, fast, you know, that team, right? Like they were Florida before Florida. Roll 4 lines, keep going, you know, keep forechecking and just keep the puck away from the other team and score goals. So, I mean, obviously they didn't take that many shots and they had a disadvantage in a lot of areas except hitting, it seems, according to the game sheet. But yeah, I mean, I think the Stars should be able to split the home series with Vegas, and then they got to go to Vegas and play in their barn and try to win at least one of those, and that might be a challenge, but I think they can do it. Yeah, I think they can do it. And Ottinger is certainly capable of doing it, but we'll see what happens. What about you?
So I'm going to quickly touch on your point about the Vegas crowd. So my brother and father went to a Golden Knights game a couple of years ago, and they said it was the loudest building they've ever been in. And it was a regular season game against the Chicago Blackhawks. That right? So
yeah.
And I mean, the Chicago Blackhawks still had Patrick Kane and Alex DeBrincat at that time, but they were not the same Chicago Blackhawks, and that building went nuts. So that crowd is crazy, and it'll be tough to beat them there, as you were saying.
Yes.
But in terms of a pulse on this series, I'm surprised Jake Ottinger wasn't as good. I know he struggled throughout the regular season, but he got better towards the end. So I was a little surprised that he wasn't able to match the levels he was at least towards the end of the regular season. Like I thought he'd be average at worst, but he was not that. And you and I watched some of the goals, and they're tough, especially the Hurdle goal where it bounces.
Yeah, bounces over his pad or whatever, over his skate.
Yeah, so like I think I'm not ready to write off Jake Ottinger in this series and say you need to go to Scott Wedgwood. I'm just a little disappointed that it didn't work out as well for him in this game. But I think there could be a bounce back game for him because he's still a really, really high end goalie. And yeah, he struggled, but I bet on the talent.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, again, like Dallas, I think their depth down the lineup, they like on paper, they had pretty much every advantage in this game, right? Shots, expected goals, Corsi, Fenwick, whatever you want to split it, however you want to say it, they had every advantage. And they are at home. But I just think that the depth of that team is just such a note to always fall back on. And I mean, as much as I like the Vegas Golden Knights, they're going to have to play Vegas Golden Knights hockey and grind down the Stars over time. Cause I don't know. I don't think you're going to get this level of goaltending out of Jake Ottinger for the whole series. You usually don't. So I would expect him to have maybe a banger game next game and go back tied to, go back to Vegas or go over to Vegas and see what happens there. Because who knows?
So yeah.
Well, yes.
Do you want to get into
the previous day?
Yes, and the previews for tonight, because we're gonna make predictions on these games as well. I think.
Oh yes. Okay. Fun. Yes. So yeah, these games tonight. Yeah. So do you want to go right for the throat and go
Jets,
Winnipeg,
Avs?
Colorado?
Absolutely.
Holy smokes! What a game! Like people who complain about, oh, you can't have the NHL be 7-5 every night. It's like, are you kidding me? That was amazing. Like that game was amazing. Like that should, I think I tweeted it out. It's like that game should be a single long advertisement for how awesome hockey is and how awesome the NHL can be. Like I mean, Colorado had a huge shot advantage in that game. That's undeniable.
I think
it
they
was,
double outshot them almost.
yeah, it was 46-23 for Colorado.
So it was a double
So
outshoot.
yes. So, maybe this isn't a thing where it's like, oh, the Jets can expect these kinds of results the whole season. But I mean, holy smokes, man. I think that I think I counted 6 goals in 10 minutes in the first period for both, like, across both teams, which is
so
insane. And then the second period, there was only one. It was a pretty decently quiet second period, relatively. And then the third period was even more, like, just back and forth forever. It was great. It was great. Like, in the third period, you had 6 goals scored, and and they were all scored, like 5 of them were scored in 10 minutes. So 20 minutes of the game, you had 11 goals.
Yeah. Even Rick
crazy.
Bowness after the game was like, that was a great game. We'll take the win, but we got a lot to work on here. With a big smile on his face. Because what are you supposed to say after that? That's just beautiful hockey. I don't care how you slice it. It was awesome. It was so fun to watch, and it's crazy, man. Like, Georgiev was a problem. And I said going into this that
he was very
bad.
He
could be a problem with how much he's played. And it was a problem. I didn't think it'd be this bad.
Yeah.
And now
he was not good.
Annunin's not available.
Yeah. You got Arvid Holm on the bench, which is tough. I don't think that's an option unless you absolutely are desperate. But knowing hockey, if that does become an option and they have to do it, he's going to win the Stanley Cup. Like, I don't understand how, like, Arvid Holm could be the hero of the 2024 playoffs.
It's
for all we know.
Think about it this way. There's no book on Arvid Holm yet. They don't know what they're getting into. It's kind of like, try against our wild card goalie here, and you have to figure him out. Because they'll have looked at how to beat Georgiev. They'll have broken that down. But they probably
Sorry, I was going to say former Winnipeg Jet, Arvid Holm.
Yes.
By the way.
Actually, that's true too. So they'll have a pretty good read on him potentially.
Yeah, it's over. Series is over.
Yep. No, but I think that was a great game. I think Colorado should have won that game, and Georgiev just let him down.
Oh yeah,
just massively let him down. Like, Nathan McKinnon was so dominant. And the problem with Winnipeg here is their stars are just not committed to defense. They're just not. Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor cannot defend. And it's pretty hilarious to watch them do it sometimes. And that's why I think there was such a massive shot differential. Because it's crazy.
To be fair, they were the best line on paper for that team all night.
Sure, but it was them taking advantage of a Georgiev who looked like what am I was going to say something really mean.
Doo-doo?
Yeah, doo-doo's better.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, I mean, I'm looking at the numbers from that game as well, just in front of me, and Ehlers, Monahan, Toffoli, I thought also played pretty well. I love Nikolai Ehlers, and I thought he played great.
Big Ehlers fan here.
So yeah, we love Nikolai Ehlers around here. But they just didn't really get like super high percentage scoring chances. It seems like they kind of just had a lot of volume. I don't know. I mean.
And there is a comment about Josh Manson being horrendous. He was.
Yeah, he was not good either. Yeah, he was not good either. But yeah, I mean, I don't even know what you even say about a game like this, to be honest. Like, because it was so ridiculous and outrageously crazy.
Hear what they said though? Like what Cale Makar said and what Jared Bednard said. They basically said that would have been. It's tough to win when all of our mistakes are being punished.
Yeah,
that was the quote.
Yeah,
that's basically what they said. That's throwing your goalie under the bus, essentially. Yeah. And Colorado
had 21 shots in the third period, and the Winnipeg Jets had 6. And how many goals did the Jets score in the third period? 4.
Oh my god!
The Jets scored on 4 of 6 shots in the third period. That is unacceptable.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Like, if that happened in Toronto, they would need police protection for Ilya Samsonov. Like, they would need to give him a security detail. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, you'd have to call Vladimir Putin for tips.
Yeah, I guess so. But I don't know. I don't even like. I can't say like I know Colorado controlled a lot of the possession in that game and they had awful goaltending. I can't imagine Georgiev is going to be that bad for the rest of the series, like that bad.
Well, the
I
thing
don't
is, it's
know.
like they're gonna come at him early in
Oh
tonight's
yeah,
game,
yeah they
and
are.
he's gonna have to face everything immediately. And if he,
Yep.
like, let's say one goes in off of the first 4 shots, this could swing the series in Winnipeg's favor in such a dramatic way. So this is the game I'm going to be glued to tonight.
Yes, 100%.
I'm so excited.
100%.
I'm looking forward to it.
8 p.m. tonight?
9:30.
9:30? Okay.
I think it's 9:30.
Yeah. So yeah, like, what do you think happens tonight? Like, what?
Nathan
Like,
McKinnon shows up and takes out.
I have goosebumps.
I think Nathan McKinnon is going to show up and just play garbage man and clean up and just destroy.
Oh.
He's going to go nuts.
Yeah.
It's going to be like a McKinnon 4 or 5 point night because he's just going to be so mad at what happened.
Yeah.
I bet you he chewed out everybody. Doesn't even matter that they probably deserve to win that game.
Yeah.
McKinnon is going to have gone in and been like his intense self, and he's going to I think he's going to carry them to a win tonight. And it's going to be super fun to watch. And even if he doesn't, it's going to be spectacular because we're going to see something crazy.
Well, if Colorado loses, you go home down 2-0. Or sorry, you go.
Yeah, you do go home.
You go home down 2-0. I think Colorado still figures it out.
So
I don't know what to expect, honestly. Like I know, I agree. I think that like McCarr and McKinnon and all those guys are going to come out absolutely ripping. But yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, like what can you do if your goaltender is allowing the kinds of, just insane amounts of volume against him and goals and everything?
One of those goals was on an empty net.
It was, yeah. No, it wasn't.
No,
I don't see any goals listed as
really?
an empty netter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just misremembering, so that's even worse than I thought.
Well, at one point, Winnipeg was up 7-4.
Yeah.
And then it ended 7-6.
Yes.
So, yeah, they didn't. No empty netters at all. And only 2 on the power play, I think. Yeah, 2 goals on the power play for Winnipeg. So they had 5 even strength goals, which is crazy.
Yeah, insane.
Yeah, so that's just insane. And this was the one that I enjoyed watching the most for obvious reasons.
Because it was nuts.
So you think that Colorado's evening the series tonight or what?
Yeah. I'm pretty confident that they will. And if they don't, who cares? It's going to be awesome
and
to watch.
So much in hockey, especially in the playoffs, is about momentum and like responding to challenges and like how you come out. You got to set the tone if you're Winnipeg. Like you gotta set the tone of like, no, this wasn't just Georgiev not being so good. Like we can hang with this team. On paper, I don't think that's particularly true, but who knows? They played decently, I thought. I don't know, but I'm so excited. I can't wait for this one.
Yep.
We can move over to Vancouver, Nashville.
Yep.
And
there was some big news right before.
Yeah, big news. Thatcher Demko is questionable for the rest of the series and out tonight. So it's going to be Casey DeSmith tonight in net for the Vancouver Canucks.
Preds in 5.
Hey, UC Saros, I thought was a little shaky, let's say, for UC Saros' standard.
And you know I'm kidding around, though.
Yes, of course. It's all we do on this show, right? All we do is kid around. But yeah, I mean, honestly, this was another one where I didn't see as much of it as I wanted to, but I thought Nashville came out playing pretty well. They outshot Vancouver. Again, like we've been talking about like how we expected things to go going in. And I mean, you look at the numbers that come out for Vancouver after game 1, like their first line was ripping as it always is, but the middle of the lineup down to the bottom, I thought was not, they kind of mixed in with the ether of the Nashville Predators.
Like the third line, I think like they got 3 of the 4 goals.
Yeah, they did. Dakota Joshua had 3 points.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Did not have that on my bingo card at all last night. No, not at all. Or 2 nights ago.
That Lindholm, Garland, Joshua lines was really good.
Oh,
in the third
I love
period.
Connor Garland. Yeah, I like Connor Garland and Logan Stankoven are great examples of why
Seth
not all
Jarvis,
small players are terrible in the playoffs. Yeah, Seth Jarvis was another one.
9 playoff goals already.
Just yeah, if you got guys who can skate and can play, they can play in the playoffs. Why not? Um, and yeah, I mean, I thought, I mean, Nashville, I thought they hung in there pretty well, and now I think you have the goaltending advantage. I know DeSmith has been pretty good this year. But I mean, I think with Saros in net, like that's a Vezina caliber guy when he's really going. And
Yeah.
does like, to me, it's like if you're the Nashville Predators, do you now smell blood in the water, right? Like, do you now go, okay, one of their X factors this year was Demko. The Smith is not bad, but it's not Thatcher Demko. Can we maybe swing things a little bit and split the games away, and maybe come back with a best of 5 and gain home ice advantage in Nashville?
Yeah, if they can win tonight, man, I think that
That's huge.
I think the series swings in Nashville's favor. I really do. Because without Thatcher Demko, I think the Canucks lose their bailout. And I think that's been a big part of why they've had so much success. And we saw it tail off towards the end of the season because he wasn't around.
Yeah.
Right? Like they could have won the President's Trophy easily.
Yeah.
With where they were in the standings, but they just failed to do it.
Yep.
And I think Thatcher Demko was a massive part of that. Like, I think when we look at this season as a whole, Hellebuck and Demko should be the two guys, but it'll probably go to Hellebuck because he played more games.
Right.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, but he was also right up there. So, but man, I think Vancouver could be in trouble because they don't get a lot of chances on nights. Like, there are some nights where they're ripping, and there are some nights where they're not getting a ton of chances on net, and it ends up in a spot where they've won a game where they've had 21 shots, or a game where they won and they had 23 shots. Like, there was a game this year that DeSmith played where I think the Columbus Blue Jackets outshot them and beat them in a shootout. This is what worries me with Vancouver.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I thought that this game was, although I will say, I thought this game was pretty back and forth, like pretty even. I don't think I can look at it and be like, oh, Vancouver's like in trouble, or like the Nashville Predators are like going to shock the world and whatever, but they can hang. I think these two teams, they can hang with each other.
I think they're fairly even in terms of
Vancouver's top end, though, I think is where they have an advantage. And I think that's a big advantage to have. That top unit did play really, 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 really well. But the rest of the picture for them, like, yeah, if it's a wash both directions when that top unit is on the ice, like they were moving Elias Pettersson around the lineup a little bit, and none of those combinations seemed to really move the needle against Nashville.
The fourth line got killed.
Yeah, the fourth line got destroyed.
Bluger,
like
Mikheyev, DiGiuseppe, just
not great.
Not great. Yeah. They're playing Sam Lafferty with Elias Pettersson and Niels Höglander, right? Like that's a little it's a little iffy for me, right? So and it was because you said the top unit, but that top unit is Besser, Suter, Miller.
Yep.
Like Pettersson was fine.
Yeah.
But wasn't otherworldly in that game. The way
game 2.
Yep. Go on.
No, finish your thought. No, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that was my thought. He just wasn't.
Oh, okay, great.
Otherworldly. So you go on.
I was just gonna say,
Please.
I think you mentioned it earlier, but like game 2 is so important here. Like, I think, I don't know, if you ask me, of all the game 2s tonight, I think this one might be the most pivotal for a given team. Like if the Jets lose, it's fine, right? You pulled off a shocker against them in the game 1, that's fine. We'll get to Panthers Lightning in a second, but Rangers Capitals we'll get to as well. But I think when you take all of these things into consideration, like the Canucks, like they got to go in and pull off this one as well, I think, because if they don't and lose home ice advantage, that could be a tricky situation for them, especially if they don't have Demko for the rest of the series.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, now we can get into who
do you think wins tonight?
Oh, who do I think wins tonight? Yeah. The pulse check. So tonight, I'm gonna have to.
Do you want me to go? Because I know my answer.
Go first. Yeah.
I think Nashville wins tonight. I think they
See,
tied this up.
I think Vancouver figures out a way because that's all they've done all season. They figure out a way to get there,
But they've
right?
had Demko to figure out a way for them.
I know, but DeSmith hasn't on paper been that much worse. Um, I don't know. I hope they win. Like that's I guess where I'm at is like because I think that they are a team. I mean, I love Nashville. I think they're built really interestingly. I think they're surprising a lot of people this
Love
year.
Andrew Burnett as a coach as well.
Yep. And like they have some like Roman Yossi played great that game. Philip Forsberg I thought was great.
Tommy Novak's fun. Ryan
Tommy
O'Reilly's
Novak is fun. They have a good team. I think Vancouver personally, I just think tonight Vancouver kind of rallies around the fact they maybe don't have Demko and they go, look, like people have been sort of thinking that we're a bit of a paper tiger all year. So let's go out and take a stranglehold. Let's go up 2-0 in this series and whatever. I mean, I think Nashville's going to make it a hard thing for them to do. And if UC Saros has a great game, which he's capable of, then yeah, absolutely. I think you could be right. But that top unit for Vancouver, though, has been really, really good. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be close. You know, we haven't had an overtime game yet. You know,
which I'm sad about. I wanted one
I
yesterday. I was like, please, can we get this Dallas Vegas game to overtime?
But if there's anything I know about data science, it's you can always bet on regression. And so overtime, you know, the fewer overtime games we get now, the more we're probably going to get moving forward. So I don't know. I'm super excited for this one though too as well.
Yeah. But the series definitely has flipped on its head without Demko, in my view.
It is very different. I think, yeah, it is a very different, thing. Like, I think that the way the game went last night, or 2 nights ago, sorry, I thought was about how I thought the series was going to go, like kind of relatively balanced end to end, and then with Vancouver's top line kind of really driving making good things happen.
Yep.
But yeah, you're right. Like losing Demko completely changes the equation a little bit, and it's going to really, again, it's like, how do you respond to that? How do you come out? If you're Nashville, how do you respond to that? If you're Vancouver, how do you respond to that? What's the mindset that you're in when you hit the ice, right? Because you know the first 10 minutes of the game tonight could be wild, right? Because both teams I think sense maybe a little bit of blood in the water, right? Like Vancouver definitely wants to go up 2-0 in this series. You absolutely want to win both games at home. Nashville absolutely wants to challenge Casey DeSmith. They absolutely want to try to split this, get the home ice advantage and bring it home. So I get the feeling that at least the first little while in this game might be a little bit insane.
Yeah. So now it's time to move on to the last interesting series. Come on.
New York, Washington?
Oh, get out of here. That series.
Yeah, that game.
Sorry, man.
Okay, so Florida, Tampa?
Yes. The Battle of Florida.
Yeah. Great game, that one, too. 3-2
awesome.
Florida. Awesome game. These two teams. Every time I see the Florida Panthers play, I go, at the end of this game, someone may have passed away. Like, like Florida, genuinely, I think Florida, of all of the teams, maybe Colorado, but like of all the teams that I saw play and like based on what I saw, I don't know. I thought Florida looked the scariest. I don't know if that was just Tampa, maybe not hanging super well with them, but I thought they played well.
They had their chances, I felt.
Yeah, they had their chances. Like, I don't think like you look at the shot differential and the fact that they lost and you could write them off and go, okay, maybe Florida, whatever. But Florida, though, like the way that the thing I noticed about Florida is the way that they're structured. It's not just that they chase you around and hit you and punish you and everything. Like Tampa Bay just could not get the puck through the neutral zone, like ever. You know, like the Florida Panthers
transition guys too.
Yeah, Florida was trapping them and like even like tracking potential outlets and routes and everything. They had secondary support there, and like Florida just seems like such a well-rounded team. Mm-hmm. And they're real, like when I watch them, I'm kind of going like, I don't really, if I'm game planning them, I don't really know what the game plan is to sort of get through them.
Hope you don't die. That's the game plan.
Bobrovsky was really good. I thought he played really well, generally.
Yeah. And they can always go to Stolars if things don't work.
Yeah. And so for me, like, I don't know if you feel any different, but yeah, Florida, they had the shot advantage every period. They had the most shots in a period in the third period of the game. You know, and they just, I guess I'm more enamored with this series because of how, when I really sort of sat down and paid attention to the Florida Panthers, because I was sitting there going like, Tampa can't get anything through these guys. They can't get anything going. So I don't really, I don't really know. It's going to be interesting because I thought Florida, just like the structure really stuck out to me, and the fact that they not only can forecheck and not only hit you really well, but like if you get through that, right? Like if you do manage to get the puck, to up towards the blue line and up into the middle of the ice, like that doesn't mean you're home free, right? Like the Panthers don't just sit back and relinquish, right? They have options that they can present.
Yeah, man. Like with Tampa, I just get the feeling that like they're still so solid. Like I know the defense isn't great, but that team, like when Vasilevsky's on his game, he's insane. And he can win. He won 2 cups essentially. Like he was that good for them. And
Yeah.
they obviously have other weapons and artillery that they can use to get goals, but Vasilevsky can take over. And
Yes, he can.
I think honestly, like I still think this series is going to be close just
Yeah.
because of that X factor that they have there, and their power play is still so phenomenal. It really is.
And I thought Vasilevsky did play well. Like I thought he played quite well. Like a lot of people kind of writing him off a little bit this season, but I thought he looked really good. He
But
was making tough stops he had to make.
Florida did take the Derek Lalonde approach of throw stuff at him from far out where he can't
Yes.
see it, and
Yeah.
like
And
it was an. I'm just when I see this series, man, like this is the series that I think is the best. I really do. I think it's just the most fascinating because I think you have the best team in the NHL for my money in Florida against a team that is grizzled in Tampa. Like they've
Right.
won before. They're also just insane. Like they're still good. They're still
Oh,
such
yeah.
a solid team. And they have holes. They definitely have big holes, but it does matter that you've won before because there's a level of confidence and a level of like you don't worry when you've won before. You don't have the same amount of pressure. So you can just get into killer instinct mode and just go.
Mm-hmm.
And in that sense, like Tampa, they can convert on chances quickly. They made it a game with 8 seconds left.
Yeah, they did.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree. This is one of the series that of all the games that I watched between the start of the playoffs and now, this is the one that I thought was, I agree, most interesting and definitely most like, you saw why Florida is such a dangerous team for sure, and you also saw why you can't really count out the Tampa Bay Lightning. Like I'll be glued to the television for this one as well for sure.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. So who do you think wins tonight?
I think Florida does it again. I think that they could just get. I think they could just get there. I know that's not good analysis, but like I thought they did sort of carry a lot more of the overall momentum in that game. I thought the Tampa counterattacked really well. I thought Tampa, their power play when they got the chances, I thought they were playing really well. But yeah, I mean, I just think that with Florida, like if they keep it as structured, like they had multiple lines that were playing really well. If they keep things just as structured as they did in game one, like, if you hold the Tampa Bay Lightning to 19 shots in a game, you're doing something right.
Yeah.
And, and it's not, I don't think it's because Tampa was playing poorly. I think it was because Florida plays so well. And if you're still at home, like that crowd was rocking, I don't think that trend changes. And I think they go back to Tampa up 2-0, but that's just me.
So I disagree. I just get the feeling that Tampa's going to win tonight. I do. Because that team they just got a lot of dog, man. And my dad went to the Florida and Tampa game in Florida beforehand, like before the season ended. That crazy game where Tampa, like, I think it was like 6-0 or something. Like they took it to Florida that game. It was pretty nuts.
Yep.
And I think the Tampa Bay Lightning, they have statement game potential. And I wouldn't be surprised if they go out there like, no, we're not going down by 2. You're going to come to our building and we're going to reset the series. I still don't think they're going to win ultimately in this series. I think Florida's going to be able to get it done. But I just get the sense that it's going to be a 1-1 series because Vasilevsky's going to have a great night, and there's going to be some good rush chances against where like Sorelli and Hagel maybe connect on something, and a couple power plays that Kucherov does some magic on. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I also like the thing I also picked up on that in my notes, I was just looking at that I forgot to mention, but Tampa's defense group, I thought that was kind of where their weakness was.
Oh,
and I think
100%.
Florida capitalized on that really well. And I don't think that there's much that Tampa can really do to change that. Like their defense group of like, Darren Radish and like Emil
Matt
Martinson
Dumba.
Lilleberg. If you had told me when Emil Martinson Lilleberg was drafted and then let go by the Arizona Coyotes and then goes to Tampa and plays 18 minutes in a game in the playoffs, I would have thought you were insane. Like, and I saw these guys play, and like I think Tampa's defense group now is outside of maybe Victor Hedman, like they're decent at sort of sitting back and trapping you and physically playing you and causing turnovers, but moving the puck up the ice, like that was where the struggle really came from, defensive, like on the defensive side of things, and it was kind of similar to how I felt about Toronto playing Boston. Boston's defense group and Toronto in a lot of spots as well are similar. But their defense group in just spots, there's holes. Like they have serious deficiencies in terms of getting pucks out of your own end and moving them up the ice. That with Florida, they just capitalize on so well. And that's kind of what you have to do. And so I look at I just think I look at their defense group and I go, yeah, if you're trotting out this group of 6 again, yeah, like Victor Hedman played 25 minutes, but like they played Matt Dumba 19 3/4.
Yeah, that's right.
Darren Radish 18 minutes. Is that going to be enough to turn the tides against that forecheck that Florida has, right?
And I totally get where you're coming from. I'm just going off feeling for today because it's
vibes,
dude. It's the playoffs,
yeah.
all right.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
going off feeling a little more than I'm going off logic because that's the way, at least for this series.
Yeah,
because
it's true.
I am rooting for it to go the distance. I am.
Yeah.
Selfishly.
I hope it. Yeah. I mean, I like any series that goes the distance, right? Like it's a hoot every single time that happens.
Depends where I have certain biases. So.
I just like craziness. That's all.
Understandable.
But yeah, I mean, I think this one still goes long, like you think as well. But I don't know. Tonight, I get the feeling that Florida might just just eke one out again.
Yeah, so let's get into the craziness of the next series.
Yeah, the last one, the Washington Capitals and the New York Rangers. The first game of the playoffs, I believe, right? Or was that Carolina, New York?
That was
Carolina. That was Carolina, New York.
Yeah.
The other New York team. But yeah, this one,
yeah.
Like,
but there were some good moments. Matt Rempe scoring his first goal in the playoffs, having the quote afterwards, "I'm built for the playoffs." Yeah. That's awesome.
That's hilarious.
Awesome. Yeah. I also saw the comment about about me calling it uninteresting. I'm just having fun, man. I don't mean it. I'm not being serious. But I do think that this series should go to the Rangers, right? Like, and that's kind of how I'm feeling about it. So that's why I said what I said. But
yeah,
in any case,
no, I agree.
I think this could be a fun one potentially tonight because Washington's really, really got to avoid losing.
Oh boy, do they ever!
And that game fell apart in a couple of minutes for the Washington Capitals.
Yep.
And that was the difference. That like
3 goals in 2 minutes.
Yeah, that was the difference in that game.
Yeah.
And the Rangers, who I think can be a bit sleepy at times, woke up and just piled on all the pressure that they had. Kind of went back into hibernation mode after that a little bit, but they went out and did their damage. Like, they can be incredibly dangerous when they're going, and they've just got to maintain a level of, like, I just wish they played with more tenacity. I wish they were faster, because if they were, I think they'd be way better. And I know they won the President's Trophy, but I'm not convinced by the group to win the actual, to win the cup. But I think they have a solid team. Like, you look at that, like Adam Fox, Artemi Panarin, right? Igor Shesterkin, who I think it's, like, honestly, I think he's the best goalie in the league. I do. I love him.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think again, like you look at the Capitals, and again, I don't know if they played like badly, but yeah, like when things weren't going their way, it really wasn't going their way. Like and they're down another defenseman. Like I know Vincent Iorio is not like a world-ending defenseman, but they called up Hardy Harmon Octel.
Right.
Like that's like you're pulling deep from the depth chart now without the guys that they're like. They don't have Sandin, they don't have Nick Jensen.
No, they don't.
Like they're pulling deep names that on a team that already kind of struggled to keep the puck out of the net and struggled to score. Charlie Lindgren is going to have to stand on his freaking skull. Like I think that's going to be the story now is, I still think that this series is closer than I think people might think, but it's not entirely, reassuring that the Washington Capitals were 0 for 4 on the power play. And they have Alex Ovechkin out there, like the greatest goal scorer of all time out there in the playoffs with 4 power plays, and they couldn't get one through.
Yeah.
Obviously it's one game, but I think that the Capitals, this is like, it's not going to get any easier from here for Washington 100%. And, the Rangers, I agree. I think the Rangers were this game was a lot slower. I think this game was a lot more plodding might be the word I would use, just sort of trotted along.
Yeah.
Which is fine, like maybe the Rangers are just going, you know what, like they've pre-scouted this team, they think they can beat them, so why
ramp
go
up
nuts?
the intensity?
Yeah, like why ramp it up? And like the goal that
process, right?
Like the goal that Panarin scored, like Alexis Lafreniere sort of, I mean, he injured Vincent Iorio on the play, but Iorio wasn't really much of a breakout threat on that play, and so Lafreniere just kind of guided him to the boards, and then just threw it out in front, and there's Panarin, right? And it's just Artemi Panarin being Artemi Panarin.
Yeah.
So it's like I like Washington to me at this point has to be perfect. They have to really depend on their goaltending like they did all season. And that's a dangerous game to play. But yeah, I mean, if there is such a thing as like maybe the Rangers have more gas in the tank and they just go, yeah, okay, we're down a goal to Washington. Okay, we got to go get one, and they can go out and get one, right? But we'll see, because
burning question.
Hello.
Has your opinion changed on Matt Rempe?
Hey man,
because the best part is before the show even happened, Will's like, somebody's gonna say, has my opinion changed on Matt Rempe? And JL in the chat is like,
right away.
Yeah, told you, Will, which is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. He didn't play much. He played like 7 or 8 minutes or something.
Yeah, but he's
fine.
built for playoff hockey, Will.
Yeah, he's built for it. Yeah, I mean, that was a decent goal. I mean, he kind of like, again, like the Washington defending, they just completely lost track of him, and he just like, how do you lose track of a guy that big? And he just waltzed out in front and popped one in short side, right? Like that's pretty wild. But I don't know, like what do you want me to say, right? Like he lumbers around throwing the body and goes to the net.
Look, everybody, Will's never gonna change his mind on Matt Rempe. All right,
I'm dug in, and I don't have to change regardless of the facts set out before me. The guy had 2 points in like 20 games this season, playing 5 minutes a night.
Tim Stutz.
I hate him. I hate all of your favorite players, all of them.
Except for the ones awful. Named William Nylander, Timothy Liljegren, and Nick Robertson. Those are the only players Will likes.
Yes,
and all the small kings.
Yeah, everyone under 5'7", I'm a huge fan of. Nathan Gerbe, greatest hockey player to ever play the game. Sean Doogie got a bad rep. That's a deep cut for all us draft geeks. But in any case, no, but yeah, it was a good time. This game was, this game wasn't a particularly good time. I don't think it was fine, but I don't know. I think I don't know if you would disagree, but I think the Rangers take game 2. I think the Washington.
I honestly, again, feeling. I just think I think this series might get a little more interesting. I think Washington might have a response game, but it's also hard for me to. Like, I don't know. It's kind of murky for me. Because I think Washington's going to win 2 games. I do. Yeah. And I think their opportunity to win 2 games, I think they got to win I think they might win tonight, but it could also, like, I think this series is going to be just a couple of key moments in at the right time that happens where, like, because those 3 goals in 2 minutes, that's what won the Rangers the game. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a similar short period of time, maybe not as short, but like a period of time that's very crucial in the game, and then it just kind of flatlines like it did in the previous one.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of how it goes, because other than that, Charlie Lindgren was pretty good. But he let in some rough ones during that stretch. Like, he just had... it's just like having an ADHD moment for all of 2 minutes and losing track of things. But he was able to come back and be composed and get back to center. So...
Yeah.
And he's a really good goalie, so you never know in these situations. Or at least he's been a really good goalie this year. So
yeah,
I kind of
that mustache, maybe the power of the mustache.
And again, I'm going off feeling because it's the NHL playoffs, and it's stupid sometimes.
Yeah,
the Rangers should win, but I just get that stupid gut feeling that the Caps might win tonight, and then the Rangers will come back and win the next 2 or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know.
And there's no real rationale to it. I'm just being dumb.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that Washington does win a couple of games at most in this series, but I don't think they do it in New York. I don't think they do it tonight.
That's fair.
I think that, like, again, the crowd with the Rangers, it was crazy. It was a madhouse in MSG. And they have a lot of guys, I think, that the fans and the team rally around. I think Washington is treading water in a hurricane right now.
But they treaded water all year too. Like, this team doesn't make sense, Will. They made the Stanley Cup playoffs. They don't make sense.
I'm aware. And I'm on the record. I've said it multiple times. Like, I am more supportive of Washington in this series than most people. But, like, losing another defenseman, having an unproven playoff goaltender, but a great regular season out of that goaltender is a question mark.
Habs legend.
Habs legend Charlie Lindgren, yeah. And I mean, I think that the Rangers, like, I see a couple comments about Artemi Panarin and that I'm nonchalant. Like, I love Artemi Panarin. He played great. Like, he's an X factor guy on that team. Like, they have the guys that Washington just does not. And they can go out there and score some goals. I think that, I mean, maybe Charlie Lindgren faces 40 shots and saves 39 of them and they win 2-1 or something. I just think that that's somewhat unlikely.
And it's also hard too, because I also just said Igor, for my money, is the best goalie in the league. I just love the way he plays. So it's also hard to bet against Igor. Like, I don't know. There's something weird about this series, and I feel, and the game 1 kind of, because if we're going to pulse check now on how we feel about these series, I don't feel like it. I don't feel any different than I did about this series.
I'm a little less bullish about Washington, but again, it's only been 1 game. And I thought that game kind of was back and forth. Okay, back and forth. Like, it wasn't like any team really dominated, I don't think. I thought the Rangers finished really strong, but yeah, I don't know. But I think I'm a little less bullish on Washington, especially now that they've lost another guy. And but
I mean, it's Vinny Iorio.
Yeah, it's I know, but, like, that's also part of the problem. Like,
but what but the replacement that they're going to bring in, Will, is not going to be. How much different is it going to be than Vinny Iorio? When you have a replacement level player that you put in to actually play defense in the series, what's another replacement level player really going to, like, how, like, I don't think there's going to be a drop off.
Daily Faceoff has Lucas Johansson penciled in as their defenseman for tonight.
Who dat?
Exactly, right? Like, that is a guy, I think they drafted him like a gajillion years ago. I think, or was that Winnipeg? No, they drafted him in the first round in 2016, and he's still with the team.
Hell yeah.
So, I mean, 22 games in the AHL this year, 12 points, 6 games with Washington with 1 point. Last year, 7 points in 40 AHL games. Like, they're digging deep down the depth chart here. And, like, I know it's Vincent Iorio. Like, you can't be too, like obviously it sucks that he's hurt, but like, yeah, maybe he's not that big of a loss, but it doesn't help, right? Like it does. They're digging so deep down the depth chart. It certainly doesn't help. And I'm a little spooked. I didn't even know this. I didn't even know Dylan McIlwraith was a Washington Capital, like, until I saw him on the ice. Really, I was like, oh wait, like I had completely forgotten that he was a player. Like just and playing against the Rangers is also really crazy to me. But I got to double check before I say something. But yeah, he played 3 games with the Capitals all season, and now he's playing in the playoffs.
And now he's going to play at least 4 playoff games, probably.
Oh my god! And like, oh my god, So yeah, and I mean, I also do not understand why I get it because NHL playoffs, but he's played 9 NHL games between last season and this season, and the last time he played in the NHL was before the pandemic, and they pulled him into the playoffs right away after 3 games this season. So I don't know.
My head says the Rangers win, but my gut,
your gut,
my
gut,
stupid gut thinks
your
that
stupid
Washington
guts.
should out. Like it's either going to be the series is either going to be a 6-game Rangers win, or the Rangers are just going to sweep them in like a non-convincing fashion because they might be saving themselves for the real challenge, which I believe is the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Agree. Yeah.
Anyways, we're 20 minutes over time in terms of the first hour.
I think we get a waiver for these episodes because the playoffs they deserve discussion, and there's a lot to talk about, especially
awesome,
after the first few days. Man, teams hit the ground running. I don't think any team has really like come out looking bad. Like like you could say Toronto in game 1 maybe, but like
I don't think
not
so.
really. I don't think so.
I think it was just undisciplined in the first period that led to the scoreline. They looked better the rest of the game for my money.
Yeah. I think Toronto finding the balance of how to play that physical edge style of game while also not being dumb. Like that's the line they kind of need to ride, and a lot of teams need to ride, and they kind of cross that line way too many times in game 1, game 2 a little bit as well here and there, but
they found it.
They found it. They got there, and I thought they figured it out.
Like I think I think you have to go with the Islanders for the most disappointing just because of the performance yesterday, or Washington.
I don't know. I can't lay really much at Washington. I thought they played decently, but yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe the Islanders, but only that third period. That third period was they were winning. They were winning big time in that game.
Yeah, but they were they also got outplayed pretty much, other than maybe the first 20 minutes. They were outplayed for at least 40 and probably 45 or 50 minutes where Carolina was the better team. So
yeah. I don't think anyone's played particularly poorly. I think in terms of like incredible teams, like teams that look the best. I mean, Edmonton looked great. I thought they looked great.
Yeah.
But the power plays definitely shroud
Florida.
that. I think
I'd go Florida 1.
Florida as well.
Florida
1, I think Florida's
Carolina.
number 1. Yeah.
I think those 2 are the teams that I'm looking at. But Florida, a true number 1 of all these teams so far. And
Colorado, I think, was the best team that lost. Like they
easily
the best team that lost.
And then I think followed by Toronto for the game 1 because I think Toronto played pretty well still.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'd put Dallas in there.
That's true, actually. No,
maybe Dallas. Yeah. So I can't wait. I'm so excited for the next few games because like games 2, 3, and 4 in a series are always so interesting to me because it's like those are the ones where it really sets the tone for the how the series is going to come to an end. Like Act 2, right? Like Act 1 of the playoffs is always like really exciting and fun, and then Act 2 in the middle of a series is like the lines get drawn for what Act 3 is going to look like, and Act 3 is always just like insanity. So I love Act 2, and I'm ready to go.
And when the play drags on to the 7th act, I mean, usually I'm not there because I don't see very many plays. But we're talking about the hockey play, so the playoffs. That is always insane, and I'm looking forward.
Well, the play is different. You're going to a different play the next night, right? There's 3 acts the next play, and then 3 acts the next time. So it just depends.
Fair enough.
But yeah, no, I'm ready to go. It's been lots of fun, and I'd say almost every one of these games has been great. So
on that note, let's get to Act 2 of our show.
Act two of our show. Yeah, we don't have a 3-act system in our show. We just have 2. So deal with it. But before we get to it, we'll do our quick ad reads. We're brought to you by Fanatics. You can use our affiliate link code below or scan the QR code in the chat to provide a kickback to the show on anything you buy in the store. We're also brought to you by Puck Preps Hockey, where you can get all your NCAA and CHL prospect needs. There is the TELUS Cup coverage going on right now, and again, we have some recaps of the USA Hockey Nationals coming soon. We're also brought to you by Fractal Hockey Consulting, my business for hand-track targeted player analysis and recruitment packages for the NCAA, Europe, and beyond, with solutions for any of your organization's needs. And of course, Scouching.ca. So you can subscribe to Scouching.ca, get exclusive access to data tools, tons of insight into the draft, players that have been drafted, Discord servers where we can discuss stuff and share video and all that fun stuff, and plenty of other goodies and early access to content and exclusive content that the public does not get to see. So,
such as Scouching reports.
Such as those reports, yeah. Well, public will get them eventually, but you get them quite a bit earlier. So if you want to get the leg up on the world for my takes in a much more concentrated format, then this is the only place to do it. All right. Well, questions. Okay. Demko.
And we answered the Rampe one.
Yeah. I think David's trolling you with the Nikita Teligan question. I don't know if he's a real person or not. He is a real person, playing for Chelyabinsk. I don't care. I mean, I'm half joking. I don't think I've ever seen this player play hockey, or at least paid attention. So I don't know. Whenever David tells me a player to go watch, I always go for like 2 minutes, and I'm going, what is he doing? Why? I think David is lost in the sauce a little. But that's okay. It happens to all of us. There was a stat from the Carolina Islanders game where Carolina had 110 shot attempts to the Islanders 30. Yeah, I remember that. I saw that pop up, and that's how Carolina does it. Like, that's just how it is, right? They shoot from the perimeter a lot, but they always park dudes in front and just bash and crash away. You know, like even that Sebastian Aho goal in that game against the Islanders, where I think it was the goal to put them up, just parking himself at the far side of the post with the extra man.
Put it up. I think that was I think that was the tying goal. The Aho.
Oh yes, it was. Yeah, it was the tying goal. That was it. And yeah, so parking himself at the far post there, like you think of Sebastian Aho as maybe more of the skill guy, whatever, the finesse player, but he also has that ability. He just finds a spot, parks himself there, and bashes and crashes. So that's how it goes, and they can stack up the shot attempts for sure.
Yeah, it's death by 1,000 cuts with them, but in their case, they shoot 1,000 shots.
Yeah. Oh God, Tony Ferrari asking me a question about, is Macklin Celebrini closer to Hischier or Crosby?
Hischier. Probably.
I mean, yes. Oh, I see why. Okay, so privately, Tony also messaged a link from The Athletic about ranking first overall picks in the last 9 years. And I believe they put Celebrini at 4, I think, behind Matthews, McDavid.
And Bedard?
And Bedard. So yeah, it was McDavid, Bedard, Matthews, Hughes, then Celebrini, then Dahlin, Power, Hischier, for Lafreniere, Slavkovsky. This apparently, he pulled 6 scouts and executives. So there you go.
There's some massive Hischier hate then.
I mean, I think it's like as a tier, like the Celebrini, Dahlin, Power, Hischier. I think those guys are all kind of hanging out together in the same house.
Really? I think Dahlin.
Well,
I
put Power lower than Hischier for sure.
Yeah.
I think Hischier, Dahlin. Okay, yeah, Hischier, Dahlin, Celebrini. I think those guys. I mean, I love Rasmus Dahlin.
Yeah, like I think I put Dahlin maybe slightly ahead of Hischier and Celebrini, but I don't think Power should be that high on the list.
One scout here in the piece that says the believers in Celebrini view him as a potential number 1 center in the NHL who can deliver excellent two-way value. He's not Sidney Crosby at the same age, but he's a lot closer to Crosby than he is to Hischier.
Disagree.
Disagree. That's a scout opinion. Yeah.
He is a lot closer to Hischier than he is to Crosby.
Yeah.
Crosby is another mutant, but of a different kind.
Right. I
McDavid's
mean,
just mutant ability in terms of how fast he is and just how stupidly skilled he is. Crosby is just like one of the smartest maybe the smartest player ever, honestly. Like he's right up there.
Here's something from this article that I think you'll love. Corey Promnen wrote it.
Oh no.
And he closes the writing with Macklin Celebrini saying that he slots in behind Hughes is interesting. I'm pretty sure that's not how you're supposed to start a paragraph. That he slots in behind Hughes is interesting, as Celebrini has been a dominant junior and college player, whereas Hughes wasn't a full-time college player in his draft season. What difference does that make? Like the fact that Jack Hughes did not play college hockey. Like, why would
you know what difference
that
makes? Jack
Nothing?
Hughes was younger and doing what he was doing. Macklin Celebrini's going to be an older first overall pick.
No, he's not. No, he's an 06.
No, but isn't he? He's in college.
Right, but they're the same age.
Hughes was NTDP during his draft year.
Right. Celebrini graduated high school early, and he's in university early. Like he's an 06. He's the youngest guy in college hockey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just out of the loop then.
No, it's just that Hughes didn't go to college when he didn't finish school early. He stayed with the NTDP. But to me, I love when people compare two players and be like, well, it's interesting that this happened because this player didn't do this thing this other player did. It's like, oh, but he couldn't have, right? Like it's just a different path, right? Like, oh, this player didn't play at the under 18s. What do we do about that? It's like, well, he couldn't. Like, it was impossible. Not that this was impossible, but different story, right? So I don't know. Anyway, regardless.
Yeah, it's a little nuts, actually.
But I have no issue with Jack Hughes above Celebrini, but I do agree. I think Celebrini is like up in that Heischer area, like an 80-point guy who can do pretty much everything really well. You know, like that's kind of what Heischer is.
Awesome.
And I love Nico Heischer. Yeah, he's a great, useful player. He's a fantastic player. Like the 1-2 punch of Hughes Heischer is scary, legitimately really scary.
Honestly, I could see a situation where we have the same sort of discussion about Heischer as we did about Barkov, or it's like this guy's the most underrated player in the league until he isn't.
Yeah.
And he becomes the most overrated player in the league.
People still call him super underrated when everyone's like, he's awesome. Yeah.
It's always these two-way guys that tend to have these.
Yeah. The guys that don't score 100 points, but if you didn't have them on your team, you would always want them.
Exactly.
Which sounds familiar to me because that's often what I'm looking for. What else do we have here? Thoughts on Tarek Parasak? Oh God. So I've got to do a game on him again because I watched him a bunch of times before the World Juniors and formed my opinion on him pretty quickly. I am not a fan. He's not ranked for me, but I mean, I've talked to a bunch of people about him, and I just think that the positives that people are talking about with him are things that kind of don't seem to happen. Like, again, it's like I think you have to be very careful looking at hockey players. And again, I might completely look dumb in a few years for this, but like, you got to kind of look at players and see, like, it's like if you see a player in the junior leagues and you go, man, this player plays like this role would work for him in the NHL, then and that role is something that you kind of go, okay, but like a lot of things are missing from this picture, and there's a lot that needs to happen in order to get there for this player. Like, I think Parasak is one of those guys. You know, like, yeah, he scores a ton of points. I get it, right? I watch him score his goals. I don't think his shot is particularly high end. I watch him score his assists. I think he's more of a connector at the end of a chain of possession. You know, when I watch Parasak, I go, all of the heavy lifting is being done by guys like Andre Becker, Riley Heidt, all those other guys on that team, I think, do a lot of the heavy lifting. Where he does, I think, have positives is he always finds a way to put himself into empty space in the offensive zone. He keeps it simple. He goes to the net. He, can fit. He's got hands in tight to goaltenders. He can make plays in the crease. He can do all of those things, which is great. But it's like there are roles for players like that in the NHL, but generally they start off way higher younger and sort of work their way down to settle into that role, because they still have to be useful players at both ends. They have to, or generally, I guess, ideally, you want guys who, can transition the puck. And with Parasak, like pretty much everything is really just low volume with him. His pass attempts are really low. He doesn't complete a whole lot of them. He doesn't really pass the puck around the offensive zone much, like in threatening ways, like at all. His shots, a lot of them, I have 80% or sorry, 70% of his shot attempts in the games I've done coming from outside scoring areas. Every time I see him, I kind of just go, where am I drafting you? Right? Like where this is kind of my philosophy. Like when I rank players, it's like, I can't rank someone where I would look at them and go, what is it about this player that excites me? Right? If the answer to that is like, I just don't know, then I have a really hard time, like I have time to set that aside and go, I might not be super high on this player, but I could see how they could be a 5 or 6 defenseman, bottom 6 NHL forward, right? They might not blow you away, but it's possible. You park Tarek Parasak with 2 really, really good NHL players. He'll be smart enough probably to be coachable enough to generate some level of offense, find space, do all that stuff. But to me, first round pick for him is wild. I don't know if I would do it. And it's to the point where it's like he's going to turn out to be an Art Ross trophy winner somehow. But I don't know. I've got to take another look at him though, to be perfectly honest. It's been a while since I've seen him. But again, early in the year with a guy scoring as much as he did and me not liking him as much as he did, like, trust me, when that happens, I watch that player a lot to make sure that I feel what I feel about them. I don't just write them off, because I just want to, right? Like, all of these guys I've seen. And so I don't know, with him, there's a lot of scary stuff. Like the guy that I always think about of a guy that, like, not the same type of player, but the type of trajectory that lands in a position like Tarek Parasak, like a Lars Eller. Like Lars Eller I remember watching him when he was at the World Juniors for Denmark. Outstanding hockey player, like fast, skilled, really strong, did so many things for that team, literally put the Danish team on his back. All the other guys were literally on his back the whole tournament. And he did really, really well. Drafted in the first round, but regressed over time in not in a bad way, but to be a really good third line NHL dependable forward, and that's okay. That's totally okay. Most guys don't get that far, but sometimes these high skill offensive guys are guys that do fill those roles, and generally these guys who are like maybe slower, physical, more size focused defensive centers in the OHL, like they're not going to project to the NHL because there's a lot of things that are missing that are fine for the OHL. You can play that role in the OHL that way, but it's a big uphill battle to do the same thing in the NHL with how fast and physical and skilled everyone else is. So with Parasak, I just think that it's like, I don't know. Again, I'll take another look at him for sure. At least one more, probably more. But I've seen him a lot, and I've always been very skeptical. And when people explain to me, oh, it's about his off puck, it's about his smarts, it's about how he plays around the net, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, but when is he going to get the chance to do that in the NHL? When is he, are you drafting a guy in the first round that needs 2 other guys on his line to do a lot of work for him and then have him just be the guy that's in good space offensively? Okay, then, okay, but I think that's you're leaving a lot on the table to do that. Tony Ferrari asks an actual real question. Under 18 start this week. That is true. The under 18 start on Thursday. So be sure to stay tuned for that because that's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm going to start putting together my preview post on this literally after this show ends because most of the rosters are out, but not all of them. So we'll have some thoughts on that coming up pretty soon. Which player are you most looking forward to seeing on Canada, and which player are you most excited from a European team? Well, I will kill time for 1 second whilst I pull up my spreadsheet of names, of rosters and data that at some point will become accessible. I've got it. Who? Go ahead.
I was going to say go Leafs go while you waited, or while we were
waiting.
Well,
no, I'm there. I'm there now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, Kazakhstan's going to win the whole thing. I think that's kind of a
Kazakhstan,
Kazakhstan, yeah.
greatest country in the world. All other countries run by little girls.
There we go.
I
Yeah,
don't-
we got our
so
Borat
funny,
from him.
man.
Yeah, Borat of the day. For Canada, probably Vanacker is a guy that I'll be like Vanacker, Lutsenko, and like a lot of the guys where, I'll be curious to see how Vanacker and Lutsenko look, but even the guys where I'm not super high on them for the draft this year, I'll be curious how Massey plays. I'll be curious about Henry Muse. Because again, like I have time to check in on guys again and rethink what I'm thinking. But those are two guys that I really have struggled with this season. I'm also really excited to see the guys that are coming for next year. I've liked Matthew Schaefer from what I've seen in Erie this year. Reese Hamilton has had a really good year with Calgary. So they have some guys that are next year draft players that could be very interesting, that aren't just, the high profile names like McQueen and Martone and all those guys. So there's that. Which player are you most excited to see from a European team? Honestly, like Norway. Like, I think Norway is going to have a surprisingly interesting team. Like, they're, according to my model, my NHL sort of statistic score thing, the three best players in terms of prospect value on Norway are all either 2025 or 2026 eligible players. So you're looking at a like Mikkel Eriksson is awesome. I really like him. Tinus Lekoblar, who plays for Leksands in Sweden. Also, I've seen him here and there a little bit. He's looked really good. And then they have a guy who just turned 15 or just turned 16, Nicholas Aram Olsen, who's had a great year at the under 18 level in Sweden. Not that puts them way up at the top, but they've got a couple of guys playing at the pro level in Sweden this year. They have three pro level three pro level Norwegian players coming. Matthias Deli, I don't think he's a super high end NHL prospect, but as a physical guy in this tournament, he's going to be a problem. And they just have a lot of players who I think can hang. A lot of them who have gone over to Sweden to play and are playing at pretty high levels and doing pretty well. So that's the group that I'm really curious about. Just looking at some other rosters really quickly. I mean, they're a lot of this. I mean, and I'm also just curious to see sort of who comes out of the woodwork as a really interesting option. I think Finland has some guys that I'm curious about. Atos Koivu. It's going to be interesting to see what Aaron Kiviharju does here. I've liked Daniel Nieminen when I've seen him this year over the course of the season. He's worked his way onto my list. And there's a guy down that lineup, Nathan Teshome, who had a really good Five Nations tournament. He's on the CSS list now, so I'll be curious to see how he does. So yeah, I think Finland will be an interesting team, as they always are. I don't know. Sweden has a hell of a team this year. The States are bringing a really strong team, and I don't know. Sweden and Canada, I think, are the teams to beat this year, but the States you can never count out since they've been playing together forever. And they brought some pretty talented guys. Keep an eye out for if you like the Smoles, if you like Small Kings, be sure not to miss LJ Mooney, because that guy is all kinds of fun. Why did Beksultan Makish get snubbed from the Kazakhstan U18 team? I can't answer that question. I don't get much information from Kazakhstan direct, unfortunately. But I am just glad that they brought Tamerlan Manajanov. That guy, I mean, I'm joking. I don't know who that is. I don't think I've seen any of these players on Kazakhstan play ever before. They are bringing the youngest player to the team, a player who is almost eligible for 2027's draft, Sviatoslav Yevlov, who currently plays in Russia. So, yeah. I mean, it's always funny with teams like Kazakhstan for me, because last year they kind of only really got in because Nikitin, the goaltender that Ottawa picked, he kind of just stood on his head, and now he's too old to play in the tournament. So it's like, well, good luck everybody else, and we'll see what happens. But I'm really excited. I think this is going to be a good tournament for sure. How fun are the baby Penguins now that they've added Tristan Burrows, Owen Pickering, and Ville Koivunen into their Calder Cup playoff roster? I mean, it's better than it was. Better to have Ville Koivunen than not. I'll be very curious to see how Koivunen plays in the AHL. So I'll probably check him out there. Pickering, I mean, I wouldn't have huge expectations for Pickering or Bros, but I think those guys are more longer term bets, especially Pickering. So it'll be interesting. Thoughts on Gavin Hodnett? Saw you mentioned him on your list, but didn't give any details. It's funny. I just watched the Oil Kings this week, and Hodnett played really well. I think he had a goal and almost had another point in that game. Hodnett is, I want to like him so much. Like, I want to believe in Gavin Hodnett, but I just don't think it's gonna be enough to get to the NHL. If he does, I was talking to Joel Henderson about this a while ago at Puck Preps, but it kind of feels like he's on a similar path to like Tyler Angle or maybe like a Trey Fix-Wolanski style player, where you just can't not play them because you like how they play so much, but they're just not super effective because it's not, the skill level is good, but not good enough. The skating is good, but not good enough. The agility is really good with Hodnett, but is it going to be enough to sort of push back better defenses down the road? I don't know. I mean, I think that Central Scouting having him as the last name on the list in North America is a little bit overcorrecting, but I do like Hodnett as a late round pick, as a bet, and you just go, you know what? He could score a lot of points in the OHL in the next couple of years as the Oil Kings get a lot better, and maybe he stays in the AHL a few years and scores a lot of points there, and we give him a cup of coffee here and there and see what he can do. I've liked Fix-Wolanski with Columbus, but Columbus isn't necessarily the best offensive team, and they've got guys like Fix-Wolanski on the fringes of the roster a lot of the time. So I don't know. I like Hodnett. I really admire his game, but I don't think he's on my list anymore. But yeah, definitely a player I really love to watch though, and I've got another game of him I think back in the vault to get through. So we'll have more thoughts later, but yeah. David Phillips says he's a professional Jake Ottinger hater there. So there you go, AJ. Do you ban him from the Discord server or mute him for 3 days or what?
Absolutely.
Put him in a timeout.
Especially trying to tell me Ilya Samsonov is not good.
Mm-hmm.
But we like David here.
I guess so.
We can live with a little bit of an antagonizer around.
Sure. We don't have enough of that.
I mean, I kind of do it.
Yeah.
To be fair. Go Leafs, go.
Have you seen any Daniel Niemanen? Yeah, so I mentioned him quickly. I've seen him here and there over the year. I think he's on my watch list now. He was on my list a little bit earlier in the year when I watched him as an opponent. And then I think he's a guy that you bet on long term, because I do think that the skill, like, he's one of those guys who you can see more in the tank there in terms of the skill level, the confidence, his ability to sort of pinch up from the blue line in the offensive zone. The skating isn't quite there, I don't think. I think he's listed at 6 feet, but I feel like he's lankier than that. But maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, he's a good puck carrier, but like not fantastic. The Finnish Junior League, you also have to be really careful with that. I don't know. I'll check now, but I don't know if the Pelicans were a team that were in the top half of the season or the bottom half down the stretch. Let me take a quick look. The losers stage, they were the best team in the losers stage of the Junior League this year in Finland, where they scored 43 goals in 9 games in that back half of the year for them, or in that back stretch of the season. And in the main regular season, they were 12th out of 20. But yeah, so with Niemanen, it's like I think there's potential there. I think he's one of these guys. He kind of reminds me of like a bit of like an Alexei Malinin from a few years ago in Sweden, or the guy that the Islanders drafted. Not the same type of player, but like Matthias Rajaniemi, where you could see a decent defensive defenseman there with Rajaniemi, and he's come a few steps in his career, and he's on the precipice of an NHL game, I guess you could say, or depth role. But Niemanen's kind of similar, but in that more puck carrying transition, sort of offensive zone creation type guy. I like him. He'll get drafted, I think. I expect him to be an interesting sort of supplementary defenseman on this team. Like, I think I like Soini better. I like Väisänen better. We'll see what happens with Kiwi Harju. Obviously, pre-tournament, he's played great. I expect Kiwi Harju to have a bunch of points, but we'll see. Have you watched any of the playoffs in Russia? No, honestly, I have not. There's been some upsets here and there that I've seen and heard about and everything over there, but not. I don't have the time. I've been watching too many junior guys and recently watching a lot of the NHL because why not? It's NHL playoffs are a little bit better than the VHL playoffs, unfortunately, but it is pretty incredible that Aksiyamov on a 9th seed VHL team went to a championship sweep and won MVP. So that's pretty cool. How solidified would you say are your draft rankings at this point? Any chance someone outside the top 10 ends up in the top 5 or vice versa? I mean, it's possible. I do use the under 18s as an interesting barometer, sort of like an interesting sort of baseline to put in the vault a little bit. Like, it's not like it's the be all end all, but it is a nice way to see players in a different situation and against each other and in sort of the same, it's more of a controlled experiment. If you're a science guy like me, it's more of a controlled experiment. And so that's cool. I mean, I will say though, like around now, like, so I think there are guys that have popped up on my list in general that, I just have noticed recently or really taken a deep look at recently, like Tori Pittner. I had been procrastinating. I mean, I'm not perfect. I've been procrastinating on Tori Pittner since like September. And I liked the game that I did of him, and he's been solid most games I've seen this year with Youngstown. So he ended up on the list. Melvin Fernstrom, a guy who I thought played really well in the SHL game I saw, but in the junior leagues, he kind of seemed a little bit more in the background, but still had a great year. And so Fernstrom ended up on the list recently. Hiroki Gosic is another one who has ended up on the list recently because of some more recent games I've seen of him. There's a couple of high school kids as well out of Minnesota that I noticed covering the tournament a little bit for Puck Preps. Britton Alstead he hasn't played in the playoffs for Des Moines Buccaneers, but in the regular season, I thought he played really well. There's a few others, that just have popped up. Niemanen is another one of them. So yeah, there's always guys that pop in, but in terms of movement, guys are only really moving maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 slots at most, when I sort of get through a game of them. I don't think guys are really moving around a tremendous amount, generally because I kind of usually watch a guy and I go, man, I think I might have this guy a little bit too late. And then I'll go watch the guys in plus or minus maybe 2 or 3 ranks of that player. And I'll go, okay, no, I still like those 2 guys better and those 2 guys not so much. And here's why, and blah, blah, blah. Or maybe I flip one, but not, it's not this huge catastrophe that I thought was going on before. Have you seen Elliot Gronwald? That name rings a bell. Is that a Swiss guy? Is that a Swiss kid? No, American. Elliot Gronewald of the Cedar Rapids. Yes, this guy. I think you mentioned him before, and I kind of thought he was okay. Like, yeah, I agree that the defensive habits and the skating is pretty good. So yeah, I bet there's something you could bet on there. Again, like when I look at the bottom ends of my list and the defensemen that are there, like I've got Harrison Brunicki and Will Skahan and Leon Mugli and Charlie Ellick and Ben Danford and Adam Kleber in that bottom end of my ranking list. And would I put Gronewald ahead of those guys? I don't think so. Again, like when push comes to shove in the NHL draft, there's generally guys that I have ranked relatively high available pretty late in the draft. So it's like, when would I draft an Elliot Gronewald? Maybe late round, maybe, but if he's there, but say Clark Caswell is there, or a Yegor Graf is there, or I don't know, who take your pick, right? Ilya Protas is another one that I've liked recently, or Britton Alstead, right? Like, are these guys that probably going to be there in the 7th round? Do you take the sort of defensive defenseman with mobility? Maybe, whatever, fine. But they're just the guys that I have at the tail end of my list, I just think are more developed and further along than what I remember of Gronewald this year. If I had a list of like 120 names, then maybe he's on there. But yeah. Don't let NHL playoff excitement distract you from the fact that Connor Lee is a point per game at the Division 2A under 18s. Yeah, EIHL superstar Connor Lee, noted better than Liam Kirk at the same age. Connor Lee scoring a point a game. Don't mind that a bunch of guys on his team are well over a point a game, but yeah, no, me and J Mulk, we go way back on Connor Lee, and Connor Lee is a lot of fun. I can't wait to see him next year, and not have him ranked probably, even though I love him. Tons of fun. Thoughts on Ivan Gavrilov? Is this another just random MHL dude? Because that's who he reminds me of. That's what that name sounds like to me.
So this is a David Phillip question.
Yes,
Phillips
it is.
Question?
Yeah. Gavrilov.
Because Will doesn't
yeah.
sigh at anybody asking a question about
Yeah.
Russian prospects unless it's
No,
David.
I don't. Yes. I mean, I don't know. I think you mentioned him again to me before, and I took a look at him. I didn't. Again, with Gavrilov, I just didn't see much there. Like, if you're drafting a re-entry MHL player, you better be sure, because, you know, like, I mean, I know I sent you a guy on that team who's a re-entry and has significantly less production, but I still believe that there's something there because he just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. But like a guy on that team that is a re-entry that I kind of liked a little more, Fyodor Krapov, A+ name for sure.
Definitely.
But he's a guy who I thought has stuck out to me, but I'm not drafting him. You know, it's the bar for me in Russian junior hockey. It's got to be really high. And with Gavrilov, I just feel like he is good enough to be good there, but I don't really see much in terms of an NHL prospect for him to me. Yeah. You've seen a bit of Kapitan Stupino via Fyodor Avramov. Have you seen much of Artemi Yernayev? Potential late round flyer in the game I saw. It sent me to a different player, Artemi Nizamayev. I think this is the fake one. I think this is a fake name. I think he got me.
Because he said game I saw.
Yeah.
So
let me see.
He loaded it in.
Let's see here. Yernayev. Yep, not a real person. Got me. God damn it.
I almost swore. Damn.
Yeah, I know. I don't like losing.
Good job, David. Congratulations.
Yeah, well done. Got me on that one. That's a good one. God, is this another fake one?
You shouldn't have given him this idea, man. This is your fault. You asked.
I know it is. Hey, it makes it entertaining. Keeps me on my toes. It's funny that we got asked about the GOAT, Nick Christian Petrovic. So the Division 1B championship just finished for the under 18s, and he plays for Slovenia. Slovenia, this person also led the tournament in scoring with 13 points in 5 games. I mean, I watched actually a bit of this team in South Korea because I love the South Koreans had the second highest scoring and the 4th highest scoring team in the tournament, and they finished 5th. They had a guy who scored 12 points, and South Korea scored 15 goals. That, like, Junsu Kwok was the guy that stuck out to me, but I don't think he's an NHL draft pick, but he's a AAA 18U player this year who is shooting the lights out at that level, so it makes sense at this tournament he would just run over everyone else. Jan Golicic of the Gatineau Olympique, I believe, 2 points a game, 10 goals and 10 points in 5 games for a defenseman, 6'6", not bad. But he definitely was Jan Golicic in those games for sure. He was big and decently skilled and skated okay and was better than most of the other guys on the team. But yeah, this Petrovic guy, I mean, I watched a bit of him, and I don't know. Division 1B is not a particularly good level of play, and he didn't necessarily blow my mind. The guys at that level that kind of blow my mind are usually the really young guys. Like Bruno Idzon down there last year was really, really good. He's currently with the World Championships team, doubling up in terms of points per game. He's got 4 points in 2 games, I think. So not so bad. When it comes to the NHL draft, where do you end up drafting a guy strictly for his floor? Someone who has a really good chance to make the NHL but doesn't have much upside. I mean, I think that's up to the situation you're in. To me, I mean, I just kind of look at who's tops on my list, and generally the guys high up on my list are the guys with a lot of potential but still some work to do. And and guys that drive results and not really focused on the defensive side of the game. Because I feel like those guys are guys that you could sign and maybe invite to your camp. Like, again, I always go back to the work I did for the Ottawa Hockey Analytics Conference a few years ago, where there are just as many players in the top 50 of defensemen in terms of defensive value. There are just as many undrafted players as second round picks and beyond. So these types of good defensive players, like, they take longer to mature. So kind of you're just shooting darts at a dartboard at that point. And I feel like when you would go out and draft a player who does project as maybe more of a bottom end of your defense group type player, like a Will Skahan, like, someone's going to do that in the second or third round. And in the second or third round, I feel like there's always going to be someone that I'm going, okay, but I like this guy way more. Like, I see the appeal of this guy, but he's not this guy. So I'll let you do that, and I'll do this, and maybe invite a couple of guys who maybe are 80% of the guy you drafted to my camp and keep tabs on them. And maybe if they go to college or over to Europe or whatever, I snag them afterwards. So that's kind of where I sit on that. Again, it's not so much a matter of like black and white. Like, at this point, I drafted this player. It's like you kind of have to go with the motions of the draft and kind of go, okay, well, we pick here. Who do we have here, right? Like, if a Ben Danford is the best player available on my board, then sure. It's just those types of players generally are never the best players left for me on the board, because teams just go get them right away. They just go out and just do it right away because the risk tolerance is not super great. Even though, to me, the risk tolerance of doing something that statistically you don't need to do so quickly is a little bit silly to me. But whatever, different people can think different things. Thoughts on Alex Zetterberg? I've been more and more impressed with him over the year. I've got games of him to do that I haven't yet, but he's been good. He's a creative, mobile guy, confident playmaker, a bit of a perimeter guy, though, like really perimeter based. And I wonder if the skating is good enough to sort of get through pressure and get up the ice. But I like him. He's a fun, energetic, dude who has some skill and some creativity. And I think there's potential long term. What are the public's reasons for being lower on Badinka than you? What are question marks in his game? I think people, like his defensive, like the strength in the defensive end, I think is still a problem for him. The pivoting defensively, like monitoring defensive rushes, I think is also a bit of a work in progress for him. But I love the skating ability in general. The puck skill is good. He's got a great shot from the point. He's a really smart player too, a lot of the time, especially with the puck. So I feel like the more he just physically develops and the stronger he gets, he'll be pretty good. I think he's just one of those guys who is, you see them in the NHL where they're big and physical, but also skilled and can move the puck pretty well and can shoot the puck pretty well. Like, there's a few of those in the NHL that he kind of reminds me of. And I just value that. And again, as a late first round pick, if you get a number 4, number 5 defenseman who can muck it up and skate well and do all those things, then sure. Especially if he's the second or third guy you're drafting. Like if Dominic Badinka is the third guy I'm drafting and I get like a Teddy Stigo in the second round, I'm thrilled. Like that's great to me.
Alrighty, so it is 4:02, so it is time for rapid fire, because we have a report coming out in 13 minutes.
Oh boy.
So let's get through these and let you guys get to watching that.
Yes, exactly. Of the Canada-U.S. teams for the U18, who is better? I think Canada. Anton Frondel being at the U18s is not being there is disappointing. I mean, I think that there are some Swedes that might join the team after their pro seasons are done. But yeah, I probably would have liked to see Frondel, and hopefully maybe he does come over, but maybe I don't know if he's hurt or something. Mikhail Holm will probably tell me and yell at me. Brunis goes back to the SHL. Good for them. They eliminated Djurgården, so Linus Eriksson from Djurgården is now coming to the U18s, and maybe that'll be his coming out party.
And Mikhail Holm is also yelling at that.
Oh, he is. Okay. Frondel is injured. Okay, there he is. Michael Hage thoughts. No, I don't have any new Michael Hage thoughts. I still feel the same way about him. I saw him not too long ago and still feel similarly. Justin Poirier is an elite goal scorer. His skating isn't great. He has good speed, scores a lot from less good areas. So what is his potential? AHL goal scorer. I don't think Justin Poirier is an NHL guy, really. Like, he kind of reminds me of like a little bit of a better version of Justin Cote from a couple of years ago, where it's like you just shoot the puck a ton, you can skate in a straight line, okay, you can play hard, fine, but the rest of the picture is just not really there, and is also very small and very easy to sort of get an advantage on. I just don't see it. What is a good way to combine NCAA with CHL so CHL teams get to play as well as the NHL or USHL team or the NCAA? It would be it's pretty much set how it's probably going to work out. So like it's going to be based on experience in the CHL. So if you played when you were really young, let's say you played a full season when you're 16 or something, that might move the clock up a year for you. But if you generally, it's going to be the guys that are overagers and the guys that are going to become overagers that will probably be given access to the NCAA, which makes more sense, really, right? Like if you think about it from an NHL perspective, draft a CHL guy in 2 years, maybe you think they're not NCAA ready or they're not NHL ready, send them to the NCAA as a 20, 21-year-old for a year or two. They can get some school credits and, whatever. And then you bring them out there when they've had 2 years at a sort of middle level between the AHL and the CHL. Would Josh Waugh go first overall in every draft? Yes, he would. Yes. Where does Colin go in a redraft? Oh, that's a good one. I like that. I don't know, because Colin Graff is a draft eligible. He was like a point per game in the NCDC. I remember liking him. I watched him that year and I went, this guy's kind of good. Like, I don't know, if I had to draft a guy from tier 2 junior hockey in the US, I'd probably go with this guy, but I don't know. So that always was filed in the back of my head, but he was, I don't really know, mid-round pick, but yeah, we'll see. But I like him a lot. I know it's best player available, but should development history play into picking? For example, the Blackhawks taking Levshinov over Demidov if we're trusting the work the staff has done with young defensemen like Vlasic.
You just take Demidov, man.
I don't think so.
Way better player.
I see the logic, but again, I think that you go when you play against an Ivan, Ivan, think about it. Would you rather have Ivan Demidov feeding pucks to Connor Bedard for the next 15 years, or would you rather have Artyom Levshinov there to take the same development track as an Alex Vlasic? Like, to me, those two things are not at all on the same level. And Vlasic wasn't a top 5 pick, right? You're talking a second round guy or a third round guy who has come a long way in his game since he was a draft eligible. So to me, I get it, but not with a super high end pick and not when it's a guy like Ivan Demidov, right? Like, why not extend the same logic to Connor Bedard, right? Like, why focus on a guy like Vlasic just because he's been decent this year and come a long way? To me, it's like, well, put Demidov with the guys that are taking Bedard along, and there you go.
You can also sign good defensive players. Like, that's my mindset too. You fill your need through free agency, not through what you draft.
And that's the other thing too, is I think with Chicago, like, I wouldn't put too much stock in the guys that are playing defense for them now being like top 2 guys for that team in 5 years, because they were terrible. Like, like that team was not good, and I know their defense group was young, but teams are bad for reasons, and I know their goaltending wasn't great either, but I mean, they had Peter Mrazek. He was actually okay, but yeah, I look at it and go, no, you when you have an Ivan Demidov on the board and you already have a Connor Bedard on your team and Oliver Moore on the way, Frank Nazar already there, I can't
just
not
add
do
to
that.
it. Just add to it and go sign somebody who wants to be there. Sell somebody on the Chicago Blackhawks with all that skill and fun up front.
Would you like to be the guy sending first passes to Ivan Demidov in the defensive end? Yeah, I think I would, or whoever. Thoughts on Cole Beaudoin? I like him. I think he could be an energy dude in the NHL. Physical. I don't know if he's super skilled, but he's got great energy in his game. He can drop the gloves. He does lots of things that are really interesting. But yeah. What about Melvin Fernstrom? Again, like, I thought he just played a really smart game, brought the skill out that he has at good times in the SHL. I like him a lot. Not like a tremendous amount, but I think there could be a nice sort of complementary guy there. I think he's a bit of a ways away from that, but I was impressed with what I saw of him in the SHL for sure. yeah, Sweden could have a lot of 07s on their team if they wanted to. But yeah, usually teams at that level of play, they don't need to bring those guys right away. Teams like Kazakhstan and Latvia, like Latvia is super young, Kazakhstan's super young. I think Slovakia is bringing a pretty young team, but yeah, Sweden's there to win. I know, Ekberg. I still think Ekberg is a little bit overrated. I really like the next Stenberg kid, but again, I don't think he really bumps anyone. Like, again, those guys you bring in to score, those guys are your top 6 dudes, top 9 at worst. Who are they bumping off the team, right? That they are better than? I don't think there's a ton of guys they could bump off the roster. I think the goaltending pathway for CHL to NCAA is very interesting. Lots of drafted goalies have much less time to develop. Yeah, I mean, that goes across the board. I think the fact that NHL teams are going to want this to happen, the CHL thing, and I think it benefits NCAA teams as well, most of them. Not the ones at the super high end, but most of them. And I think NHL teams are going to do whatever they can to have this happen. I think it's a better solution than making the draft for players that are older. To have NHL teams have more options with their players that they draft. I think it just makes way more sense. If you were a GM, in what round would you select AJ if you were a hockey prospect?
Don't select me. I'm not good enough.
I'd say maybe
7th,
maybe
round
third round. Yeah.
7th
Seventh round Nepo. Yeah, there you go.
That's the only acceptable answer. I'm not good enough.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Don't waste your capital on me. As David Phillips says, don't even invite me to camp.
Yeah,
Not
exactly. There you go. That's it. Game over. I see the last question about the Canadian Hockey League playoffs. That's too big a topic to go over right now, and I also have not been paying too much attention to it, honestly. Lots of sweeps, which is fun, but now is kind of where the good teams start battling it out. So we'll see what happens there, and we'll have more on that down the road. But the NHL is where most of the focus is for me now. So that's going to be it today. Thank you very much for joining us. This was a lot of fun. Again, we're brought to you by Fanatics. You can use our affiliate link coded in the description or the QR code in the chat in the video window to provide a kickback to the show on anything you buy. You can also support us through Puck Preps to get all your NCAA and CHL draft prospect needs. There's going to be a lot more coming up on there over the next little while. Fractal Hockey Consulting as well, where you can get player analysis or recruitment packages for the NCAA Europe and beyond with solutions for any needs of any organization. We got business and hockey ops solutions, so check us out at fractalhockey.com. And Scouching.ca, where you can get exclusive access to data tools with unparalleled insights into draft prospects and players making their way into the NHL. So, AJ, any parting words?
Stick around, guys. In 4 minutes, the Michael Bransig Newgard report will release to the public, so you guys aren't going to want to miss that. And Leafs in 6. Austin Matthews, masterclass.
Hey, have fun with the playoffs, everyone. It's going to be a good time.
Go Leafs, go. Good night.